Not a great day for Adam Silver. Our opening segment is brought to you by Prize Picks. I want to get that out of the way because it's awkward. But we got to talk. We got to talk about this.
Promo code ESPN 700.
Yeah, $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. We're all in bed with these people in some way, shape, or form. So I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I do say often to my listeners, like, you work too hard for your money, keep it in your pocket, keep it in your bank account. But last night, Chauncey Billups coached a NBA basketball game where the Portland Trail Blazers lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves. At 6 a.m. this morning, he got a knock on his door, and now he's sitting in a jail cell waiting what's next. Last night, Terry Rozier rode the bench for the Miami Heat against the Orlando Magic. And this morning at 6 a.m., he got a knock on his hotel door, and he is now in a jail cell, as is Damon Jones, who basically was LeBron's hype man. And now we know he was an informant for the mafia, according to the documents that have been released. This is wild. This is absolutely insane. Adam Silver has to be sweating at this point as far as what's going down here. The FBI held a press conference earlier today outlining some of the details. We'll kind of fill you in. La Cosa Nostra, the Italian mafia involved. This is straight out of a movie script. Obviously, gambling on sports is not new, and athletes gambling is not new at all. We'll do a little story time on the show today, but a massive, massive piece of news breaking earlier today regarding gambling, the mafia, NBA players and coaches involved, and you have to wonder if this is the tip of the iceberg. I'm clapping. How about right out of the gates, I'm going to clap it up for the Utah Jazz last night. That was fun. That was awesome. And we'll see how long that type of effort will last. It's an 82-game season. Walker Kessler, that young man is motivated after not getting his money. He was amazing. Bryce Sensabaugh knocking down shots. Walter Clayton Jr. looked amazing. We only saw 20 minutes from Ace Bailey. They're going to bring him on slowly. The word is Ace is not feeling well. But pretty much everybody who played well last night, and they actually tried on defense. I know. Past 2 years, worst defensive team in the NBA. Did a really, really good job of making a really talented LA Clipper team very comfortable, and the Clippers actually played their players. It wasn't like they sat their main pieces. Kawhi was in town. Harden was in town. Brad Beal, Ivica Zubac. Tyronn Lue essentially waved the white flag because the Jazz were stomping them. So a little love for the Utah Jazz today. We'll talk some Jazz basketball. Week 8 of pro football begins tonight. A little Thursday night football on Amazon Prime. You can hear it on our radio station as well. It will be the Vikings taking on the Chargers. That's your first game of the pro football weekend. That is in Inglewood. Inglewood up to no good. Shout out Snoop. SoFi Stadium. And then a bevy of NFL games, of course, throughout the course of Sunday. Monday night, it'll culminate with the Commanders and the Chiefs, but it doesn't look like Jaden Daniels will play for the Commanders at Arrowhead. We'll talk some college football, of course. What's next for Utah after a loss to BYU? Colorado rolling into town. Utah, very healthy favorite. The availability report came out last night. Witt doesn't give a rip about any of this. Devin Dampier is questionable. There was like 4 or 5 names on it. So we still don't know who's going to be under center. If we get any information there, we will let you know. But Utah trying to bounce back. A lot of football left to be played and a lot still on the table. Can BYU avoid what happened a year ago after beating their rival, then losing 2 straight football games to kill their chances of anything ultra special? BYU, the highest-ranked team in the Big 12. They are undefeated. They've won 18 of their last 20 football games. And Kalani he's got it rolling. So we'll talk some college football on the show. Probably won't do a lot of RSL today. The season came to a very underwhelming close last night up in Portland, 3-1. Portland took a 2-1 lead. A header from Justin Glad brought it back to Portland took a 2-0 lead, and a header from Justin Glad brought it to 2-1. They were never able to find the equalizer. They came very, very close. I know they're upset about some calls, but that's kind of the story of the year, and the season for our local soccer team is over. Our first guest today, right out of the gates, will be Sam Bruckhaus from Sumer Sports. Talk some football. We'll get you ready for Thursday Night Football tonight. Our buddy Tony Parks will be live in studio. We'll do some jazz. We'll do some college football, bounce around a little bit with Tony. One of our favorites, longtime college football coach, national champ with LSU, coached here locally, knows Witt, knows Bronco, knows Kalani. Coach Bill Busch will join us on the show. We'll look back on the rivalry game, look ahead to some bounce-back games, and talk some college football with Bill Busch. Sam Bruckhouse, Tony Parks, Bill Busch. We have Sports Court today. Good day to have lawyers on because we're going to talk about this situation that broke earlier today. Me, Spence Checketts, happy Thursday to all of you. And that guy, Porter Larson,
Yo.
on a Thursday afternoon. Gambling in sports is not new. It's actually aged old, and we'll tell some stories today. But this feels like it's pretty significant. And if I'm Adam Silver, I'm not having a great day today.
An active NBA head coach embroiled in a gambling scheme that on its face has been, at least on his part, kind of castigated as just a poker thing behind the scenes. But he's involved in it in a way that kind of cast him in a certain light. And then if you actually dig into certain things within the Trailblazers in the last couple of years, there's a lot of smoke with Chauncey Billups. Of course, there's an indictment, too. He was arrested, as was an NBA player. So, yeah, a big day in the NBA in a not-so-fortunate way. But honestly, you and I on this show, opening tip brought to you by Prize Picks, have just been upfront, I think, and honest about the way that gambling has kind of jumped the shark. And it's, if allowed to run rampant, is not good for sports, especially if it's allowed to veer into a place where it jeopardizes the integrity of games. And it has. Just to be clear, it has. This is something that is very much an issue in sports that go beyond the NBA right now.
No doubt. There's no doubt about it. So we'll get into this with some guests, and we'll talk about it throughout the show. Our first guest today will be Sam Bruckhouse from Sumer Sports. But before we bring in Sam, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it is time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
It's not awkward. It's how we keep the lights on. Download the Prize Picks app today. I'm a pro. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN 700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN 700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. It is good to be right. You already know that Prize Picks is the best way to win cash on football, but basketball has started as well. So they offer stacks. You can mix and match sports. Players can select a single sport for their lineup or mix and match as many sports as they'd like. If you're wondering what sports you can play, Prize Picks' selection of sports is always growing with over 100-plus sports to make predictions on. You can follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app, copy their lineups in one click. Whether it is a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Moving over to the news of the day today, here on the opening tip. Terry Rozier was cleared by the NBA last year after some accusations came out. The Jonte Porter story came out. It's Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. Stuff came out with, and he has since been, convicted, and he's banned from the NBA, and he's waiting for sentencing. I believe in December he will be sentenced for his involvement in an illegal gambling ring surrounding games he played in for the Raptors. And then there was some videos going around of Terry Rozier and some rumors that he might be involved with the same gambling ring. He was ultimately cleared by the NBA, but a bombshell, absolute bombshell today dropped as last night Chauncey Billups was coaching a game for the Portland Trail Blazers against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and at 6 a.m. this morning had a knock on his door, and it was the feds. It was the FBI. They arrested him. He is sitting in a jail cell after coaching a game last night. Last night, Terry Rozier was on the bench for the Miami Heat in a game against the Orlando Magic. And then this morning, the FBI knocked on his hotel room door in Orlando, and he is also sitting in a jail cell. Damon Jones played 11 years in the NBA. He could shoot it a little bit, but he wasn't a very good player. He was mostly one of those guys that would hang on to the stars to kind of be their friends. And he was known in NBA circles as like LeBron James' confidant. And some of the news that has been revealed is that Damon Jones oftentimes would give information to mafia members about LeBron James' health, whether or not LeBron. So and by the way, I need to say this, these are all allegations, okay? But as the story continues to unfold, the allegations are Damon Jones would talk to his friend LeBron James, and LeBron would say, I'm out tonight with a hammy or whatever. And then Damon Jones would contact La Cosa Nostra, the Italian mafia, and say, hey, LeBron's not playing tonight. You should throw some money before that line moves. And these are the allegations. So just a couple of, I guess I'll call them highlights. I read through the court documents when they were released. So as I referenced, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones arrested. An illegal gambling and sports rigging operation that spanned years across 11 states in total. 30 individuals have been arrested. 13 of them are mafia members, and the case does involve La Cosa Nostra, the Italian mafia. Charges include illegal gambling, wire fraud, and extortion. It's very important to understand that these are two separate incidents, okay? So the first involves 6 defendants accused of participating in a sports corruption scheme that exploited insider information involving NBA players and teams. The defendants leveraged their connections to place prop bets based off of confidential insider information, winning tens of thousands of dollars per bet. So that's the Terry Rozier, Jonte Porter portion of this, where, as the story goes, whatever sports book suddenly would receive a ton of action on like Jonte Porter over under 6 rebounds, whatever. And then Jonte Porter would get in the game. So he has to play in order for the bet to be live, and then fake an injury or said he didn't feel well. And then he would exit the game with 2 rebounds. Hence, if you bet the under on Jonte Porter's rebounds, you would win money. And we'll see what comes out about Terry Rozier, but it seems to be the same thing. Suddenly, whatever sports book receives a ton of action on Terry Rozier under 5 assists. Like, wait, what's going on? And then you watch the game. Terry Rozier plays for 2 minutes, gets an assist, and then sprains an ankle. Okay, so that's essentially just an outline of what's being alleged. The second indictment involves 31 defendants charged with participating in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. This is the Chauncey Billups side. The FBI says they use high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed. So that's the Chauncey Billups side of this. And we can get into some more of this throughout the course of the show. But that essentially, there are 2 different things going on. So Chauncey Billups is not involved in the game-fixing portion of the allegations. He's involved in the underground poker games. Now, this is the one thing that leagues take deathly seriously. The integrity of the matches, the integrity of the games are things that keep commissioners up late at night. It's why Major League Baseball handled Pete Rose the way they did. It's why David Stern handled Tim Donaghy, the rogue official that was caught fixing games in the NBA the way he did. It's why in the NFL, if a player is caught just putting a $5 bet on an NFL game, he's suspended for an entire season. But if a player is accused of horrific domestic violence incidents, he's suspended for 4 weeks. Like, I understand that there is a line of delineation here that is really uncomfortable, but this is a nightmare for Adam Silver. And it feels like it's really only the tip of the iceberg. So we'll see how they handle it. Chauncey Billups, as well as Terry Rozier, have been put on indefinite leave from both of their teams. And the information just keeps spilling in. So as it spills in, we'll bring it to you. But we will catch our first break of the show today. And coming up on the other side, we'll talk some football with Sam Bruckhouse. All right, show rolling along today. Before we catch a break, we welcome in my friend Jeff Robe from My Hearing Centers. Jeff, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Appreciate the time today. So let's just start with the Signia BCTIX, world's first hearing aid that adapts to enhance speech and reduce background noise even when speakers move around. So that's very cool. What else do you want our listeners to know about this technology?
Well, it's a new technology, and it's available in a very small device, so people don't even hardly know you're wearing it. It's the smallest Bluetooth-connected device that's available on the market today, and it does a lot of amazing things. First of all, you can have hands-free calling capability with it because it connects wirelessly to your phone. You can stream TV sound directly into your hearing aids. You can use it to listen to podcasts or music, stream it right into your hearing aids. It's really convenient, and it makes a lot of things in life a lot easier. It even includes an app that you put on your phone, so you can make an immediate adjustment through the app if maybe the sound is a little softer than you'd like, or you're in a noisy situation. You can customize it on the app to fit whatever situation you're in. So it really is a cool device, and it's a new one. It has a long battery life. The rechargeable batteries will last for as many as 36 hours just on one charge. So there's a lot of great features and benefits to this device.
Jeff, when's the best time for someone to get hearing aids?
You know, the best time is as soon as you know you have a problem, because the longer you go without treating a hearing loss, the greater the risk is for things like dementia and Alzheimer's. Plus, you know, you just miss out on a lot of great things in life. You miss out on hearing your loved ones and being able to participate in conversations without problems. You miss out on music, just all kinds of great things that are just part of life that you take for granted with your hearing.
So why should our listeners choose My Hearing Centers, Jeff?
Well, for one thing, we use state-of-the-art equipment and techniques to diagnose and treat their hearing loss. And the great thing is we can customize these hearing aids to fit your individual needs. It's not just a one-size-fits-all type of solution. We actually customize them to your specific hearing loss. So it's going to act the way that you need that could be different from anybody else. And we have 10 locations along the Wasatch Front, so we've probably got a location that's very close to you.
And what is the special offer, Jeff, you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
Well, you know, we want 50 ESPN listeners with problems hearing to take part in the 30-day challenge to evaluate this new great Signia BCTIX device. And they can call 801-701-1924 to schedule an appointment today, or book your appointment online at myhearingcenters.com.
Phone number one more time is 801-701-1924. That's 801-701-1924, 801-701-1924. Give them a call today. Jeff, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
News is coming fast and furious about the allegations that came down this morning as Chauncey Billups is in jail after coaching a game last night for the Blazers. Terry Rozier is in jail this morning after sitting the bench for the Miami Heat. Damon Jones, former NBA player. It's massive. It is big news, and we will keep you up to date as we go throughout the show today. But let's switch gears and talk a little football with one of our favorites, Sam Bruckhouse from Zoomer Sports on a Thursday afternoon. Hello, Sam. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Appreciate the time, as always. Kind of a wild news day, and, obviously, there's a ton that we can get into at some point regarding the integrity of the game. This is ultimately what keeps commissioners up at night. But, this is the name of the game now. A lot of people in business with these sports books. But real quick, we talked to you last week. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what we saw last Saturday night in Provo as BYU was able to get it done and beat Utah. Now we'll see what's next for those teams. But what did you make of the Holy War last Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it ended up being a very close matchup. And, Spence, when you look at the sheer advanced analytics, Utah probably should have pulled this game out. They were more successful on a play-by-play basis. They got more yards per play, and they had more explosive plays as well. But, spooky things happen when those two teams play each other. It ends up going BYU's way. They're able to make the plays that end up having. I think these are two of the better teams in the Big 12. And it's just kind of a shame that the two matchups that Utah has faced, BYU and Texas Tech, have been kind of strange and hadn't gone their way for one reason or the other.
One more thing on this, then we'll move on. When you look at the advanced metrics on ESPN, if you just go away from the AP and the coaches poll, Utah continues to be ranked higher. The College Football Power Index has Utah at, 16, and BYU at 19. And the S&P Plus rankings has Utah at 14 and BYU at 20, even though BYU's undefeated and Utah has 2 losses. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think you got to break it down into 2 parts. They are ninth in the nation, according to GameOnPaper.com, in terms of net EPA per play. And then if you want to take out some of those explosives, you want to take out some of those blowouts, and in terms of sheer success, so just play-by-play success on offense and defense, they're 10th in the nation. They're an extremely efficient team. They just ran into these 2 games in which they played 2 quality opponents, and they didn't have what it took to get them over the line right at the end. So I think if we want to take a predictive approach here, I think Utah probably continues to progress and continues to be one of the better teams in the nation. But as you know, Spence, football is a small sample size sport, and you got to take advantage. They just haven't been able to take advantage yet.
Yep, no doubt. We'll see. I mean, plenty of football left to be played. Unfortunately, 2 losses is going to be difficult to overcome because they're going to need BYU to lose 3 times and Tech to lose a couple of more times if they're going to be able to get in. All right, moving over to some NFL now. We'll kind of preview the games ahead in just a moment. I wonder what you mean, because we talked to you last week about the offense in Philly. And we finally saw them throw the ball successfully last week against the Vikings. Jalen Hurts, 326 and 3 touchdowns. What was different last week with the Philadelphia offense?
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting mix of things. First, they're facing Flores, the Minnesota Vikings defense coordinator, who threw some very interesting looks at them, but they kind of finally made a change in that offensive attack. A lot more under center play from Jalen Hurts, a lot more play action, and they were able to use the Vikings' willingness to play against the run against their advantage. The Vikings really said, you're going to have to beat us through the pass. We don't believe that you can do it. And sure enough, that talent that I was referring to, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, shone through with a little bit of greasing of the wheels via the under center play action game. That's one of the most efficient plays across the league this year. And Kevin Patullo and staff was able to get Jalen Hurts in a position where he was able to make those throws. He finally did, and that is why the passing offense of the Philadelphia Eagles clicked over there in Europe.
So, based on proximity and geography, of course, we have a lot of Broncos fans in the market. I still am in awe and shocked how they were able to do that. 33 fourth-quarter points to come back and beat the Giants 33-32, one of the most historic comebacks in Denver Bronco history. How were they able to pull that off?
I love to say it because we've been talking about this for weeks, but Bo Nix put together an excellent game and more importantly, put together an excellent fourth quarter. His ability to bounce back from the adversity that came from that big deficit were clear. But what I'm starting to pick up on, Spence, is whereas at the beginning of the year he was falling into some negative plays that we really didn't see last year, in the last couple of games he's starting to look like the Bo Nix that we came to love last year, or at least came to respect, in that he's not getting sacked as much anymore. And against that defensive front with Brian Burns and some of those other guys, when you're able to kind of negate sacks, it really makes a difference, especially when you're down big and those guys are able to pin their ears back. You saw the frustration from the Giants defense going into the locker room talking about, why are we dropping 8? We need to get after this guy. Well, I mean, when he's a guy who has made decisions that he is not going to take those negative plays in that fashion, it really puts you in front of the 8 ball, and I think that was a real part of that explosion from the Broncos offense in the fourth quarter.
So I got to give you some credit here. I asked you about Tampa Bay a week ago, and you said you weren't necessarily I mean, the Baker story's great, but you weren't necessarily buying them because they'd kind of been playing with fire over the prior few weeks, and the Lions just really took it to them. They didn't score any touchdowns. And look, Detroit's really good. Dan Campbell, of course, is a great head coach, and they've got an offense that is capable of putting up yards and points, even though their offensive coordinator from a year ago is coaching the Bears. But any surprise at seeing Detroit dismantle Tampa Bay last Monday?
I think the biggest surprise was just the inaccuracy of Baker Mayfield. We really haven't seen that since his days in Cleveland. And frankly, I thought that the offensive line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is quite well touted, Tristan Wirfs, got beat bad on a play by Aiden Hutchinson. But for the most part, they were making Hutch really, really work to get in the backfield. That's one of the best players in the league, so he's going to get his. But they were making the defensive front that added Alim McNeil as well really work to get pressure on Baker. But the back end with a lot of backups, frankly, from the Detroit Lions was really confusing him. It was leading to some overthrown balls, and I really would like to see that accuracy improve. I think he's kind of knocked himself out of the MVP discussion, at least as it pertains to this week and probably next week. If he's able to get that accuracy locked back in, and the Buccaneers are able to win games despite losing Mike Evans for looks like going to be the rest of the season with a broken collarbone and perhaps concussion symptoms as well, it's going to be on Baker to make the plays. Luckily, they have had Tez Johnson, the young wide receiver from Troy by way of Oregon, who is starting to become a real wide receiver in this league. When we talked back in the draft, Spence, I really loved him. He really popped in all of our numbers. And now that they have the 2 rookie wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka and Tez Johnson, I think they're going to be okay. But it certainly would be better if they had Godwin and Evans in that group as well. So a lot of pressure is going to end up on Baker Mayfield to make big throws. He was able to make it happen in the first couple of weeks, was not able to make it happen versus the Lions.
This was probably because it was a Monday night game and they weren't staggered. That was the first time I was able to really dial in on the Seahawks. And I don't know what's going on with C.J. Stroud, and this is not a new thing. He just doesn't look like he has evolved after a dynamic start to his pro football career. But I was more impressed with Seattle than I was expecting to be. In that division, of course, San Francisco, there's the Rams, and then there's the Seahawks. They're all 5-2. And, their 2 losses to the Niners in division, then the Bucs, and that was a close one. But I was very impressed on both sides of the ball. How real is this 5-2 start for the Seahawks?
I think the defense of the Seahawks is 100% for real. They have one of the best schematic defensive calling play callers in Mike McDonald, their head coach, who is putting guys in positions to succeed all around the field. One highlight, Nick Emenwari, the highly drafted safety for them, who is now playing kind of that Kyle Hamilton nickel linebacker safety role, was able to make some really big plays. I'm still worried about this offense, though. Sam Darnold is at the top of the league in terms of EPA per play. He's in the mix for, some of these awards and a potential All-Pro or Pro Bowl bid. But I just worry about their play calling. They're immensely conservative. They like to run on first and second down and then go deep on third down. But right now, some of these statistics just do not seem conceivable to last an entire year. Right now, Jackson Smith and Jigba, 45% target share, almost 10% higher than anyone else, and almost a yard or more in yards per route run. Those are the 2 kind of grail stats for wide receivers to show how good someone is. In the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't seen anyone hit that number by the end of the year. I think if those numbers come down and they continue to play this conservative style offense, at some point they're going to get caught up, especially in a very competitive NFC West. You know, the Arizona Cardinals look down right now. There's rumors about their head coach and GM being on the hot seat. Their point differential is only -1. This is a really difficult division, and I think that the Seahawks offense is going to come down to earth. I wonder if the defense can keep it up and keep them afloat as the season continues on.
Mike Vrabel goes back to Tennessee and stomps the Titans, and in a vacuum, there's nothing overly impressive about that. But when you pan back with the Bills kind of not looking Bills-like, the Patriots are leading the AFC East. How real is this? And or do you think Buffalo at some point is just going to come back around? And on paper, they seem to be the class of that division. But you've got to give Vrabel a lot of credit. They're 5-2.
Yeah, I think you got to look at Drake May and the progression of Drake May and the progression of some of these wide receivers around him. Kayshon Boutte out of LSU. Stephon Diggs obviously has a track record of making young quarterbacks into stars, including Josh Allen. He's doing extremely well in those two stats that I mentioned with Smith and Jigba, yards per route run and target share as well. That's a big part of their success, but you got to give it up to the offensive line. You knew when Vrabel was going to come in that he was going to put together an offensive line to protect Drake May. They have 5 guys that are operating at an extremely high level, including Morgan Moses and Mike Onwenu, the veterans, and Will Campbell over there on the left side. And when you have Drake May able to make plays and able to be himself, it opens up the offense. I think this is an interesting division as well. You look at the Buffalo Bills not playing extremely well right now, but you still got to believe in them. They got a veteran team. They got most of their crew back, and they got Josh Allen. I'm inclined to believe that they're easily a top 2 or top 3 team. But you also look at your Jets, Spence.
Oh, dear.
And the offense is not looking good. I was there in person in MetLife. Not great scenes all around. But a stat is popping out to me that their defense is starting to look pretty good. And typically when you see these teams that are kind of rebuilding and you start seeing these stats pop up, it's a sign that they're moving in the right direction. Right now they are certified top 5 in success rate allowed. You saw that against the Carolina Panthers. They kept that offense in the game basically all the way down until the wire blew. And so I'm wondering if the defense doesn't continue to progress. We see some of those stars, Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Jamin Sherwood start to continue to play well. And if they figure it out, whether or not they move from Justin Fields or move to Tyrod Taylor, I think if they just figure out some kind of special sauce on offense, we're going to start to see some competitive games from the Jets, and that's just in time for some of these divisional matchups. So I think this is a little bit more challenging of a division than it currently looks like on paper, especially given what we've been able to see the Dolphins do in some weeks and definitely not do, including last week. I think this is a little bit more intriguing division than it seems, but right now I would rank it Bills and Patriots as the clear top tier, and then the Jets and the Dolphins as potentially frisky or potentially giving them some trouble.
How you polished that turd and put lipstick on that pig, Sam, was so impressive. They're 0-7, the Jets are. And my favorite video that I've seen in weeks, and I sent it to my son, my poor son, who I also raised as a Jets fan. Did you see that young kid who basically just said, look, I'll always be a Jets fan, but I hate this team? Did you see that video?
Hey, not only did I see that video, but the creator of that video, DeAndre McKenzie, who everyone should go give a follow to, is one of my best friends.
Oh, nice. Very nice. It was hilarious. I felt it because at this point, you know, at my age, I'm not going to jump ship, but they're so bad and they're so unwatchable. But anyway, I appreciate you kind of polishing that. Hey, what could Joe Burrow's performance mean a week ago? What could that mean for the Bengals if it was real? And look, we already talked about, I think Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver in pro football. I know some people think it's Justin Jefferson, but those two already appear to be right on the same page. They couldn't do anything with Jamar Chase. Obviously, you know, when it comes to last Thursday night, we discussed it. But what could that mean for the Bengals as they continue to try to wait to get Joe Burrow up and healthy and ready to go?
I think the predictive element to get out of it is that team is going to live and die with the ball in the air. Joe Flacco, the veteran quarterback, will get the ball in the air in a way that they weren't able to do with Jake Browning, even though they were able to do it about a year or two ago when Joe Burrow went out. But the ball will be in the air. This team will win and lose as Joe Flacco prevents interceptions. but he will not be preventing them from throwing it short, and he will not be preventing it from throwing the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think that's what we learned. There will be 20 target games for Jamar Chase. There will be 15 target games for T. Higgins. Joe Flacco will be getting the ball to these guys. It's just a matter of if the defenders can do enough to break it up or get in front of it and pick it off. I think there's going to be games that they lose, maybe big, because Joe Flacco has 2 or 3 interceptions, perhaps a pick 6. But there's going to be the games like the one against the Steelers where they're putting up 35 points, and both of those guys, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, have over 100 yards. That's just the way their season's going to be this year. The defense, I don't have a lot of trust in. If they're able to progress as a defense, that's going to be a great addition. But I think basically you're going to be able to decide their games by looking at the interception column.
Week 8 starts tonight. It's wild that we're already to Week 8. You know, I always say this, during the offseason, we all just pine for football. Then it comes and we blink our eyes and it's almost done. But Week 8 starts tonight, Vikings-Chargers in Inglewood. Chargers 3.5-point favorite, over under 44.5. What do you think we'll see tonight, Thursday Night Football?
I think the biggest thing to check on is Joe Alt's injury updates as we move towards the game. I think that's the biggest key for them. Right now, Justin Herbert's playing at an extremely high level. It may not look like it on the box score. He had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions last game. But they're asking him to throw 40, 50 times a game and really put this team on his back. Another thing that I'm looking at for the Chargers is this was one of the best defenses in the league last year. Obviously, they've had some injuries and stuff like that, but they're kind of middling right now, sitting at about 13th in success rate, which isn't too terrible. But you go and you look at EPA per play, they're giving up explosive plays. They're substantially worse in that category. I really want to see if Jesse Minter, who was expected to be in head coaching conversations by the offseason, can really bring this defense together, because I think that Justin Herbert is going to be able to drag this team, offensive line or not, to some winning scenarios.
Last game I'll ask you about, because it's of local interest. You know, the Cowboys get CeeDee Lamb back, and when CeeDee and Pickens are on the field together, Dak's numbers are through the roof. That offense is really, really good. And, of course, the Broncos, undefeated at Mile High, who we've already talked about. But a lot of Cowboys fans everywhere, a lot of Broncos fans here. What do you make of the afternoon tilt tomorrow afternoon in Denver?
Yeah, I think when you are looking at those two teams, in particular the Cowboys, they're going to put up numbers. That's just what's going on right now. I've been banging the drum, despite the losses and the ties, that Dak is playing at an MVP level, and we saw it against the Commanders, where he just absolutely, shreds them. I think the real question in this game is going to be, can Dak Prescott continue to avoid sacks? We talked about it with Bo Nix, but nobody is better at doing it than the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos bring a ton of pressure, but they've kind of changed the way they do it. They're using a lot less number of blitzers when they're bringing pressure and using more exotic fronts and more exotic looks, especially using Talanoa Hufanga, the former All-Pro from San Francisco. They're really doing a good job at doing that. So I'm really interested in that matchup, how the veteran MVP level Dak Prescott avoids pressure and avoids sacks, especially given if you let him sit back there for 3 or 4 seconds, the ball is going to George Pickens, who will make a contested catch, or CeeDee Lamb, perhaps a top 3 wide receiver in this league, will get open. It's borderline impossible to stop that offense right now. They're going to have to get heavy levels of pressure in order to stop it. That's the real matchup that I want to see.
Sam, tell us about Sumer Brain and where we can go get all your work.
Yeah, so check out Sumer Brain, sumersports.com/SumerBrain. It's like a chat bot, ChatGPT, but it has extremely detailed information that you can't get anywhere else. Also, go check out the Sumer Sports Show on YouTube. We discussed an early look at the trade deadline and why you really should be looking at wide receivers or defensive ends getting moved. That's the most frequent guys that are getting moved. You can break down that data on YouTube at Sumer Sports. Listen to me and Lindsey Rhodes talk about it.
Sam, thanks, buddy. Enjoy the games. We'll chat next week.
Thank you so much. Sam
Bruckhouse, our buddy from Sumer Sports. I got to say, I respect the Jets are top 5 in EPA attempts allowed. They're 0-7.
Yeah.
They're good at nothing. He likes your Cowboys.
But did you hear what he said as well?
Yeah.
Numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers. Dak has been the MVP through a month and a half of like 6 seasons maybe, including his sophomore and rookie years.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's just it's still a game plannable attack.
Did you see the video of the young Jets fan?
I did.
It was hilarious.
I feel you, brother.
I hate this team, he says as he's walking out of the stadium.
I was an actual infant when the Cowboys were really good.
Mm-hmm.
As a sports fan, Knicks, Cowboys, Hokies,
Mets,
Mets got really close, but I've never experienced a championship as like a fan.
You'll get there.
Sorry.
Well, Dak has led the Fighting Gerald Fitzgeralds to back-to-back wins in my fantasy football league, so there's that.
My fantasy team, dude, I drafted this Jonte Porter guy, this Beasley guy,
Chauncey's your coach.
Terry Rozier, and my fantasy team sucks, man.
Well, you might be winning some money. I guess that's
under
the name of the game.
every night in the under.
News is coming in fast and furious about the bombshell, this investigation involving Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier. We'll give you an update coming up on the other side. I do want to let you know, though, that with IFA's Step 4 Fall and Winter Lawn Food, you'll get stronger roots now and an early green up next spring. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move, and more can be found at your local IFA or at ifa.coop. All right, show rolling along today. Before we catch a break, we welcome in my friend Jeff Robe from My Hearing Centers. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Doing great. It's great to be with you.
Great to have you with us as always. So we're talking about hearing aids. Let me start with this. When's the best time for somebody to actually get a hearing aid?
Well, the best time is when they realize that they have a problem because, hearing loss has been connected with a higher risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. There's many, many studies that show the correlation. So the longer you wait to treat it, the greater your risk of losing your ability to hear and maybe even greater problems like dementia. That's something that you don't want to have to deal with.
So tell us about this advanced technology. What makes the Signia BCTIX different?
Well, for one thing, it is the world's first hearing aid that has multi-stream processing. Well, what do I mean by that? It means that there's two processors in the hearing aids that actually can pinpoint when somebody's moving around and talking. It will adapt to enhance their speech and reduce background noise, even when they move around, which is a great thing for people, that have difficulty hearing in noise. These dual processors will pick up those voices and kind of follow them around the room, kind of like radar. So that's something that's unique to this new device, and it has the ability to connect to all Bluetooth devices, which means you've got hands-free calling. You can stream TV sound into the hearing aids. You can listen to podcasts or listen to music. And the hearing aids will go for up to 36 hours on one charge. And they're a rechargeable battery, so you don't have to fumble around with putting in new batteries all the time. You just put them in your charger, they charge up, and you can go up to 36 hours just on one charge.
So why should our listeners, Jeff, choose My Hearing Centers?
Well, for one thing, we're going to give you the ability to understand what your hearing level is currently. We'll do state-of-the-art testing and diagnose and treat any hearing loss that you might have. We've got 10 locations around the Wasatch Front, so chances are there's a location close to you, and we have trained professionals that can do a free hearing screening for you and let you know where your problems are and how you can be helped, because what we can do is customize a hearing solution that'll meet your individual needs and your specific type of hearing loss. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to do follow-up support, including regular checks, maintenance, and adjustments for your hearing aids. We're going to take good care of you for a long time.
Jeff, what's the special offer you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
Yeah, right now we want 50 ESPN listeners that are having problems hearing take part in a 30-day challenge to evaluate the newly released Signia BCTIX that we've been talking about. And you can schedule an appointment today, or you can book your appointment online at myhearingcenters.com.
All right, phone number 801-701-1924. That's 801-701-1924. 801-701-1924 or online at myhearingcenters.com. Jeff, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Every bump today will have some sort of tie to money. For obvious reasons, as there's been a massive bombshell story that was dropped earlier today, and the information continues to come out. Chauncey Billups coached for the Blazers last night. He is in a jail cell this morning. Terry Rozier sat the bench for the Miami Heat last night. He is in a jail cell this morning. I do not know what Damon Jones did last night, but he is in a jail cell. La Cosa Nostra involved, the Italian mafia. This is wild. Gambling in sports, nothing new. The information has now been released that the allegation is Damon Jones, who was kind of LeBron James' hype man because he wasn't a very good basketball player, would call his friend LeBron and say, "Are you playing tonight?" And LeBron would say, "Got a hammy, I'm out." And then Damon Jones would call the mafia, who would then put money on the game. Truth stranger than fiction. This is right out of Hollywood. Tony Parks is live in studio. Look, man, you've been around sports for decades and decades and decades, and ultimately, I can remember being on chartered planes with NBA teams, and they're all throwing cards. They're all betting. I never saw anything as far as betting on actual games, but these are competitive, alpha males that oftentimes need that fix when they're not playing games. What do you make of what is a really bad day for Adam Silver in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible day for him. And this is such a big story. Obviously, when people say, man, this is straight out of Hollywood, they'll make movies about today. They will go into it and get the backstory, and somebody is going to put together what they hope is an award-winning piece on the backstory to this entire thing. And this is just the beginning of it. You and I both know this thing's going to spiderweb into other areas, and we can't really guess on what it'll be, but we know this isn't the end of it. Yep. So this is something that could really, this story could carry on throughout the whole entire season. And I think it really sucks, too, because I thought last night was a great night for the NBA.
Sure it was.
And so was the night before. I mean, this has been like a really good start for him. But what I make of it is like, this is the kind of stuff you conspire about. Like, this is the kind of stuff where your buddy at the bar is like, okay, just hear me out on this. Mm-hmm. Hear me. And you're like, okay, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, really. No, I think you're just mad your team lost, or I think you're mad you made a bad bet, or whatever. But instead, now you find out that this stuff goes on. Now, I hate it when people are like, are we really surprised? No, we all know stuff can happen. But when it comes out, and then you find out so many of the people that are involved, and then you find out a coach is connected, and a player, and then you find out how many years this could have gone on, and then you start, your mind just starts going crazy, thinking about how far this could expand. To me, this really comes out. You know what I thought of when this first came out was, and I had a family member call me today and we were talking about it. Whenever the Pete Rose conversation comes up, I always have to say, do you know the number one reason why the lifetime ban is the actual fixed set method of punishment? The number one reason they go, it's the integrity of the game. No, it's because you put human life at risk if the wrong people get involved and something gets botched.
And speaking of that,
and that when you hear about the families that are involved, there you go.
So another piece of information that was revealed, because after the press conference went down, even though Kash Patel looked like he was as confused as anybody, I read through just the dockets that were released. What we now know is that Jontay Porter was threatened to participate in the ring because he had big gambling debts. Do not get involved with the mafia. They operate on a different rule and different levels. Because I think a lot of people, when they heard Jontay Porter was the player that was kind of tied to this thing right at the start, was like, wait a second, what? That doesn't make any sense. His brother, Michael Porter Jr., who's now with the Nets, he's a little bit of a loose cannon. Sometimes he doesn't think about what he has to say. And he said a couple of years ago, he's like, my thing is women, my brother's thing is gambling. Like, Jontay Porter apparently has had a gambling issue for a number of different years. Few other pieces of information. Teams that were bet on during this scheme include the Charlotte Hornets, who, of course, Terry Rozier played for, the Portland Trail Blazers, who Chauncey Billups was coaching. But Chauncey, at this point, is on the side of this that's the poker games. He has not been indicted when it comes to betting on games, but the fact that the Portland Trail Blazers are in this is very fascinating. the Los Angeles Lakers, which ties into Damon Jones giving information about LeBron's availability, and the Toronto Raptors, who, of course, Jonte Porter played for. So that's the that's kind of the update. One specific victim lost at least $1.8 million on a poker game. Okay, and so the sports gambling investigation is called, quote, Operation Nothing But Net, while the poker investigation is called Operation Royal Flush. So the rigged poker scheme targeted victims who were lured, and these are all allegations, lured to participate in rigged poker games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes, including Chauncey and Damon Jones. So what the allegations are the mafia running these rigged poker games with X-ray machines under the table where they could see the cards, and also certain types of lenses on glasses where they could see through the cards, certain shuffling decks where the cards were marked. Chauncey and Damon Jones would go get rich people in their community and say, hey, do you want to come hang out with me? And these rich people would go play in these poker games and lose sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars because they wanted to go hang out with Chauncey Billups.
Right.
This is wild stuff, man. Do you think we're just starting to learn about a much bigger scenario? Is this the tip of the iceberg? What do you think?
Yeah, there's plenty of layers to this. I mean, I know we don't have evidence of that, but there's no way it's like, nope, these three guys, that was it. This is the end of it right here. No, there's layers and layers of this, because when you get two commas involved and when you get tens of millions of dollars involved and then you have this many people involved, they're not like, hey, guys, we really need to stop at 10 million, okay? That's where it stops. We have morals here. No. Oh, no. There is no stopping to it. And business is big, and they continue to push, and they continue to expand, and then they continue to execute. And when that happens, big pressure gets involved, and cover-ups get involved, and that's where this thing gets serious and dangerous. So, no, I think we're just finding out the very beginning of this and the deep, deep layers to it. Like I said, it could go on throughout the entire season. They're going to interview people. They're going to find out more. They're going to find out more and more and more, and eventually it's going to expand. So, no, this is a landmark day. I think this is a day we're definitely always going to remember in sports history as, like, it's not like landscape shifting. It's just eye-opening. It's unveiling.
Yeah.
I mean, almost like the Mitchell report. Nobody was shocked that dudes were using steroids. It was just, now we have names, now we have evidence, now we have admissions, okay. Instead of, hey, I think this is happening, hey, I'm pretty sure this is happening, now it's like, oh, yeah, it did.
Now we know the Red Sox cheated in 2004.
Oh,
now we know that anything involving David Ortiz or Manny Ramirez, because here's the thing, my recollection, Tony, is no Yankees were involved in that, correct?
Yes, okay.
I mean, that's my recollection. Andy Pettitte, A-Rod, none of them were involved in it. This was all on David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez. At least that's my recollection.
Yeah, and it was A-Rod's cousin who
what are you
messed up
talking
the whole
about?
thing.
Allegations, erroneous.
I love it.
The rigged poker games occurred in the Hamptons, Miami, Las Vegas, and Manhattan. Okay, so here's how they would kind of go about it according to the FBI documents. So the defendants utilized, and these are mob members running underground poker games, which, by the way, has been happening for a century.
Yeah,
it's not new. But they utilized altered shuffling machines to read the cards in the deck and then relayed that information to an off-site operator. The off-site operator was known as the quarterback, and then he sent that information to someone at the table. Apparently, they were wearing small little earpieces where they were communicating back and forth. The FBI also says the defendants utilized other cheating technologies, including poker chip trays that read cards through hidden cameras, special contact lenses, and glasses that could read marked cards, and then X-ray poker tables that could read cards face down. This is wild. I wonder what you make of the overall dynamic of how accessible betting is to everybody, not just athletes. If we take this conversation away from the breaking news of today, The Athletic did a story last year. I think $1.7 billion was bet on sports last year by the general public. And according to the reporting of The Athletic, 70%, Tony, of males in college have betting apps and are active on them.
Yeah.
Because what has happened is, one of your frat bros wins like a $20,000 daily fantasy lineup, and you go, oh, wait a second. If Broccoli Rob over here can do that, if this idiot can do it, I can do it too. So then you go and download the app, and then suddenly you have wasted your tuition money, and you've got to go live with your parents, and you're kicked out of school. Like, I view this as a tremendous slippery slope when it comes to our ability to get a dopamine hit on our phone. And if you're fooled into believing you can beat the odds once, you keep doing it, you double down, and next thing you know, your bank account is empty.
So I think it for the individual who goes out and gambles and is involved in it, it can be dangerous because you never know how your brain and how your mind and how you are going to react to something like that. So the individual must be aware. I think you need a good support system, and you have to be responsible. Just like anything that you do, you need to be responsible with it. When it comes to the narrative, and I take a different approach than maybe some others, the narrative that, well, see, now you have sponsors that involve this, so it increases the chances that the players are going to be involved. No, if StubHub is a sponsor, and that doesn't mean that you're more likely now to involve yourself in a ticket-selling scheme where you take your comped player tickets and you involve yourself in some weird, thing illegally. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, no, you knew the behavior was illegal whether or not they were a sponsor. As a player, you knew that the gambling on this was illegal whether or not they were a sponsor. So whenever I'll hear people say, like, this is so so hypocritical of the NBA, to be like, hey, you can't gamble on this. Oh, but the NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. It's like, well, yeah. Yes. If Marlboro's a sponsor, other than Vlade Divac, that doesn't mean you get to smoke during halftime.
Shout out to Vlade Divac.
Yeah, if Vlade can get it done, I guess it. But you get my point.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, guys, that doesn't somehow mean that you as a player don't know the difference. You knew the difference. Mm-hmm. They go over a whole course in training. Well, when I was an NBA broadcaster and then at the scores table as a PA announcer, whatever I was doing, I had to go through an entire thing about gambling. In Major League Baseball, working in there, I go through an entire thing. And the one I remember doing in the NBA, they were like, you need to tell us about any NBA game you ever gambled on all the way back to pretty much the bicentennial. And I remember having to list, I know I gambled on NBA games in 2006. I actually had a endorsement thing, commercial thing. As a matter of fact, I think Chad Saunders, or a good partner here, was the sales rep for that. Mm. And so I did their commercials, and they actually gave me a credit, and I was involved in it, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a fun little thing to do on the air. But I had to tell them about that. Be like, yeah, the Grizzlies and the Celtics in 2006. And so I had to list all of that out. So they get down to those details. No one's confused on whether or not it's there. So whether or not they're a sponsor, it's not like, I don't think that in any way is like, see, that's the root cause of this. If they weren't a sponsor, I think this would still be going on. And obviously they try to keep it under wraps because they know it's wrong and they understand that it is illegal.
I wonder, because I was thinking about this morning, and I read some stuff that The Athletic did on this. Mike Vorkunov was talking about kind of some of the historical stories as it pertains to athletes gambling in the past. I wonder what it is about the way these guys are wired, where they're constantly seeking the next dopamine hit, and they're constantly seeking the next, like, competitive, situation. Because back in the day, the Michael Jordan narrative that he left basketball to play baseball for 2 years because he was in hot water with gambling, I know that permeates still to this day. I honestly can tell you, as somebody who knew David Stern well, that I don't believe it. I really believe that Mike, after his father was murdered, wanted to go do that to try to reconcile that loss, because baseball was the thing with Michael Jordan and his father. Mm-hmm. I think he wanted to go see if he could play baseball to try to heal. I don't believe that David Stern would tell a cash cow draw like that to go away for 2 years. But what did happen is that there were all these stories. Like, for instance, when Michael Jordan was here playing the Jazz in the finals, he would fly to Vegas, he would play golf, he would gamble, and then he would come back to Salt Lake. We all know it, and he would do that often. And so stories started to permeate that Mike was losing a lot of money playing golf. The NBA did investigate that and found out that there was one round where he had to pay somebody like $60,000. He lost $60,000. Now, for Michael Jordan, that's pennies in the couch cushion. Mm-hmm. But there was one round while he was playing where he lost like $60,000 in a game of golf. And he was often seen on high roller tables in Vegas, in Atlantic City. And still to this day, he plays golf and gambles. There's stories all the time. People that I know have played with Michael Jordan, and he will not play unless there's money on the line because he wants that juice. There's got to be something with the way these athletes are wired that maybe makes them prone to potentially gamble and ultimately maybe lose a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. People are competitive, and this is one way that they can be competitive and try to compete in some other unique, different way. And so to gamble is, and then whether or not somebody is actually, like if you look at the money he lost, but the money he has, he could afford to lose what he was losing.
Right.
So when people are like, he gambled, whatever the number is, 60 grand on a golf outing. Well, for him, that's as if you went to wherever and lost $100 on something, right? Like that's okay. But you can afford to lose that. He can afford to lose 60 grand. Not that he wants to, or not that you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is that's scalable. So when they're like, he's a major addict, well, it's like, no, he enjoys doing it, but that doesn't mean he's irresponsible, and that doesn't mean he's, out there doing whatever to try and cover gambling debts. So that's a unique situation of that. What I would say is some of these players, they enjoy gambling. They'll get into fantasy football. They'll do all these different things. By the way, perfectly fine. You can't do it with the sport you're involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why you would involve yourself in the sport that you're involved in is for the higher likelihood of winning. And that's why it's illegal. And that's why the lines are not blurred. You know it. And that's why when people go, should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? No. So every player that thinks, hey, you know what? No. Because you think, you know what? I'll just do this, and it'll just be like this. And you know what? I'll just do the under. We'll just do it this one time. You think the Gambino family's like, yeah, just do it this one time, and we'll call it good. No. Guess what you're doing tomorrow? Guess what you're doing on Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Guess how this is going to go? They now dictate the terms, and they tell you how it's going to go. And if you don't comply, you don't want to know the levels they'll take it to.
Exactly.
Because if you botch that thing, they're not going to be like, I'm very disappointed in you, man. I don't know, man.
You'll
I
get
don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
No. You botch their game plan, and things get ugly really fast.
And that's why the news that Jonte Porter was actually threatened to continue is something to consider, because so many people were confused as to why an NBA player. And look, Jonte Porter was not a superstar, but he could have played 10 years. He could have got a pension. He could have made $20, $30 million. Terry Rozier has made over $100 million in his career.
Yeah.
That makes this a little like, why would you risk? I will be interested to see if there's information coming out about Terry Rozier being threatened the way Jonte Porter was.
Yes.
Because ultimately, this is a guy who's made so much money. You don't think, making a couple $100K on a game where you pretend like you're injured would move the needle for him. The NBA Players Association has released a statement, quote, "The integrity of the game is paramount to NBA players, but so is the presumption of innocence, and both are hindered when player popularity is misused to gain attention. We will ensure our members are protected and afforded their due process rights through this entire process." So that just came down. The Lakers have not. They have declined to comment. The number that was wagered on Rozier by the mob, I can't believe I'm saying that sentence out loud, is $259,000 for one game where Terry Rozier played for 9 minutes and 34 seconds, and that $259 was bet on the under. There's a hubris / idiotic nature to this approach, because now with the ability to track this stuff online, I'm sure DraftKings or FanDuel, as they monitor all this stuff because they're required to do so by law, I'm sure somebody was like, hey, can we get a manager over here? There's a $1.7 million bet on Jonte Porter's under 4 rebounds tonight. Like,
That's a really obscure thing.
Can somebody look at this, please? And then Jonte Porter plays for 2 minutes, gets 2 boards, and then says he's sick and leaves the game. Like, you're going to get caught if you do this with the ability to track all this stuff online.
Right.
Back in the day, most of this stuff was all of this stuff was below board. So, in order for Henry Hill to get caught, or the old college basketball betting scheme, the Boston College stuff, the feds had to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
But now with the ability to track this online, there's a certain amount of hubris that goes into believing you can get away with it.
Sure. And what happens is the money gets so good, there's enough people on the inside, they feel safe enough to do it, that they feel like, okay, we can execute this. We'll do it one time in this one fashion, and it'll look like a one-off. But you're right, like 259 on something like that, that's really random. And then he leaves the game early in 9 minutes. That's, I mean, the likelihood of that, I'm not a mathematician, but some mathematician would give you some 1 in 800,000 chance that something like that was going to happen. My big question for this, and this is where, Patel and the FBI will have to get down to the bottom of it. How did this get started? Which individual was it? Which individual, and it might not even be one of these three.
Yeah.
Which individual actually got it started, and then it branched into this guy, and some of these people, and it could even be, and I'm trying to be fair to Terry Rozier here because I know he's, he got arrested today. We got all this happening. You can't rule out that Terry's innocently sitting there at a shoot around and goes to Lee or whatever, and somebody makes a major threat to him, and he was not wanting to be involved in this, but found himself between a rock and a hard spot that he didn't invite himself into because there's so many other layers to it. And now he's facing not just maybe his safety being in danger, but maybe a loved one's or something. And I know I'm going way down the rabbit hole on that, but it's like, no, you can't rule that out.
Well, there has to be something to what you're saying, because if you've made over $100 million in your career, the assumption has to be like you're not interested in making $10K on your under 4 assist line on BetMGM. The pressure has to be coming from somewhere. And because the Italian mob is implicated in the allegations, I don't think you're necessarily up in the night to draw that conclusion. Because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. Like, you have now Terry Rozier's at the end of his career, but you've made over $100 million. And Jonte Porter, again, he could have been a 10-year journeyman and made $20-30 million and got an NBA pension. Because you have that potential on the table, unless you are an absolute moron and just decide to go rogue and do this yourself, it has to be coming from somewhere else. So it does feel like because the mob is implicated, there's probably something there. Of course, a couple of other historical, situations indicating, to back up Tony's point, just how serious leagues take this. We talked about the 93 investigation of Michael Jordan for his ties to at least one gambler who he paid $57,000 to settle a wager stemming from a round of golf. We all remember 2007, Tim Donaghy, the one rogue official, as David Stern called him. He was suspended, then he resigned. He served 11 months of a 15-month federal prison sentence. As you referenced, Pete Rose. In 2023 alone, the NFL suspended, I believe, 7 different players for betting on sports, which you're not allowed to do. So, look, we took a massive risk when we all accepted that this was now normal. 38 states, it's legal to bet on sports in 38 states. We're sponsored by, a site where you can do some, like, most everybody's in bed with these gambling companies because the money's so big. Do you think there's ever going to be any sort of societal holy bleep moment with this? If my memory serves me correctly, over in the UK, at one point, they decided to no longer take wagers on English football, on soccer, because so many people were like losing their homes and families were being broken because somebody would, take out a second mortgage and put it all on a Liverpool match. I think they got in front of this in the UK. Do you think we ever get in front of this here? Or is it just too late?
I think the money's too big, and I think the benefits are too high for anybody to, and I know it sounds bad, for somebody to pull the moral card and say, hey, guys, this isn't good for society. They're going to say, is it good for business? And they're going to say, yeah. And they're going to go, all right, well, you have the freedom to make that choice. By the way, if you have a gambling problem or you know somebody who has a gambling problem, call 1-888, and they throw that in there. Yep. And, hey, reminder to please gamble responsibly, and that's, I think, going to be a part of it. I'm with you that, sure, there's an inherited risk that comes with individuals making poor decisions in the middle of it, but the money's too big to the point that we have the FanDuel broadcasting network that covers a number of teams. It's going to be an essential part of it because sports is big business and gambling on sports is big business, and that is never going to stop because of the payoff, if you will, that comes with it.
FBI is also saying the defendants robbed a victim at gunpoint to acquire a rigged shuffling machine in these poker games. The FBI has been working on this investigation for 4 full years. with victims losing at least $7 million at this point. But Kash Patel earlier today said it's tens of millions of dollars. So information continues to flow. The latest is Damon Jones is accused of using his relationship with LeBron James to give bettors information on LeBron's health as to whether or not he's playing. Wild day. This is a massive, massive bombshell story, but it's not all that's going on. We'll do more with Tony. The Jazz looked really good last night. We had Utah BYU last Saturday. We have college football to get to. So Tony Parks live in the studio for another segment. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, show rolling along today. We welcome in once again our friend Jeff Robe from My Hearing Centers. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Doing great. It's great to be with you.
I appreciate the time. So let's start here. What are some of the risks that people run as far as their health if they don't take care of their hearing, and what are the benefits that they see after using your hearing aids, these Signia BCTIX?
Well, one big thing that's been shown through multiple studies that are available online is there's a much higher risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease for people that have hearing loss. And that's something you don't want to fool around with. The longer you wait to treat it, the greater your risk of losing the ability to improve it very significantly. So that's something that is a very good reason. And it's interesting that, hearing loss doesn't just affect older people. It can happen to anyone at any age. Causes of hearing loss in younger people include things like exposure to loud noise, genetics, medication, or maybe an illness. So it's important when you think you've got a problem to come in and get tested, and let's find out what condition your hearing is, and let's do something about it if you've got a problem.
So I think a lot of listeners, when they hear, hearing aids, they think of the big old bananas on the back of their grandpa's ears that looked really big and not very convenient. You guys have advanced technology with this product called Signia BCTIX. What should our listeners know?
Yeah, it is the smallest Bluetooth-compatible behind-the-ear hearing aid on the market. So it sits behind your ear very discreetly, and it's not easily seen by others. It's something that most people don't even know you're wearing, but it gives you a hands-free connection that you can make phone calls using your hearing aids. You can stream TV sound directly into them. You can listen to podcasts or stream music into your hearing aids. It's all part of the technology that's available with this new BCTIX.
Jeff, why should our listeners choose you guys at My Hearing Centers?
Well, for one thing, we've got convenient locations for you, but most of all, we've got trained technicians that are going to be able to treat your specific hearing loss. We'll get you in and find out what your specific problem is, and then we'll tailor a solution that fits your exact loss. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a solution. It's very specific to your particular loss, and we'll take care of you for a long time to come. We're going to do regular checkups, maintain and adjust your hearing aids, and do regular testing every year to see if there's any changes in your hearing.
And what's the special offer, Jeff, you have for our listeners who give you a call today?
Well, we're looking for 50 ESPN listeners to take part in the 30-day challenge. If you think you've got problems hearing, we want to have you evaluate the newly released Signia BCTIX. So you can call today to schedule an appointment or book your appointment online at myhearingcenters.com.
Phone number, guys, dial it now. It's a great offer, 801-701-1924. That's 801-701-1924, 801-701-1924. Or as Jeff mentioned, you can go online to myhearingcenters.com. Jeff, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, they tried to take the money and run. Porter in his bag today. I do need a little Kenny Rogers, the gambler, at some point. If we could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, don't you worry.
Thank you, sir.
Come on now.
Massive story today. We've been covering it, where the NBA is not having a good day. I'll just put it there. We did a big segment on it last segment. Chauncey Billups, after coaching last night for the Blazers, is in jail today. Terry Rozier, after sitting the bench for the Heat last night, is in jail today. And Damon Jones, longtime NBA player and confidant of LeBron James, I guess, he's also in jail. Tony Parks is live in studio. TP, let's move away from this because there are some other things I wanted to talk to you about. We had you on prior to the Utah BYU football game. I don't know if you're aware, but they played football last Saturday. It really is such a fun week because it matters so much to so many people, and it's fun to really consider the dynamics of how it could go down. And ultimately, last year, when BYU rolled up to Salt Lake and beat Utah for the second straight time, I said on Monday, it kind of feels like the tide is turning. And now BYU has beat Utah 3 straight times. Utah has not beaten BYU since 2019. BYU is 18-2 in their last 20 games, and they're first place in the Big 12. So I said on Monday, the tide is no longer turning. It has turned. The preeminent football program in the state right now plays their football 40 miles south. Would you agree with that?
So last year I thought BYU was hands down the better team, and Utah put themselves in position to win, like the way they performed. So going into it, I thought BYU was the better team last year. Utah physically won that game, put themselves in position to win, and didn't finish. This time I thought the two teams were staring at each other eye to eye. And I gave Utah an edge in this game because I thought that O-line, the run game, they're not perfect offensively, but I thought they started to polish the little things really, really well. And going into that game, I gave Utah a slight edge there. And they showed that slight edge at times. And so this whole thing of like Utah or BYU is far and away the better program, I thought this season they stared each other eye to eye, and BYU made the timely plays, and Utah did not, in terms of execution. But if you want to be like, oh my gosh, BYU is so much more athletic and they're so much more talented, and there's not necessarily. Not necessarily. That was a dead even matchup, to my opinion. And Utah elected not to kick field goals on 4th and 3rd and 4th and 7. Simmons completely missed a block on 4th and 1. If he does a C- job on that, they get the first down.
Mm-hmm.
So these little things Utah didn't do, and BYU did. And they come out on top 24-21. If I'm a BYU fan, I'm over the moon about the win because you have a team so connected that in the second half and in the fourth quarter especially, you find a way. Not you find a way because the other team screwed it up, like the Tebow stuff when people would be like, how do you explain it? It's like the dude ran out of bounds and gave him life. Yeah, that had nothing to do with Tim's prayer, I promise. At least I don't think so. I have no confidence.
It did not. Let's be very clear.
I just want to. That's my opinion, folks. I did not.
Yeah.
But the point is, it's BYU makes plays. They do it, and they make the timely play, the big interception, the great run. All 11 guys blocking into the end zone, like making a guy miss. Like your team kind of has a knack for that. And that's really cool. You should feel like excited to have a team so connected and bonded like that. If I'm a Ute fan, you finished that game against Arizona State. You should have felt great. Came out of the bye. You look like the better version of yourself. You look like you're surging forward. And then you go into the game against BYU, and you made the timely, fundamental mistakes at the worst moments. Didn't finish a key block here. Teo Johnson has Bachmeier wrapped up, and for whatever reason, lets him go. What are you doing?
That one will puzzle me for years.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I've tried to look back at it and be like, did he slip? Did he get hurt? What am I missing? You just kind of let him go. And so anytime I talk about the rivalry, several things are true at the same time. And that is, I thought the two teams really stared at each other eye to eye. I liked Utah's O-line more, and so I picked them to win by an edge. And instead it was BYU winning by an edge. And it was Utah with the timely mistakes and BYU with the key plays, and that's the way it goes. But what I hate is, and this would be in some of the previous eras too, where Utah beats BYU in 2012, and people are like, boy, it's a landslide. I'm like, no, it's not. BYU had 9 false starts, screwed it up. Utah's longest offensive drive was 39 yards. Please. That was a 24-21 game that BYU vomited on. So this one here, I'm not going to look at this last game and be like, oh, firm stranglehold. No. Now, could it be? Possible. As BYU has this momentum going upward, and Utah's obviously going to continue to try and fine-tune what they do. But that game was not one team far better than the other. No, it was two teams looking at each other eye to eye. One team made the little plays and executed better, and the other team made the key, timely, misblock, mistake, whatever you want to wrap it up into. And that's why BYU won 24-21.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is 3 straight is a streak. One can be a fluke,
sure,
back-to-back, but 3 straight, and now it's 2020, so 6 years since Utah won the thing. And look, man, I said during that 9-game winning streak for Utah, where it felt like BYU would never win again because every single year Utah found a way to get it done, and oftentimes the game wasn't close. I just said, look, these things are cyclical, and oftentimes something will happen that none of us see coming that will even the playing field. And if you've cheered for a team over the course of a number of years, there are good times and there are bad times. Unless you're a Jets fan, there are only bad times. But it ebbs and flows. It just does. And so for BYU, the way they've been able to get the tide turned back on their side is clearly linked to a couple of different very important things. Number one, they finally get the invite into what's now a P4 conference. At the time was a P5 conference. They finally are a Big 12 team. They no longer have to deal with independence and the challenges that presented in recruiting, in scheduling, in no more UMass in November or Idaho State. So that's number one. Number two is NIL has changed the landscape of athletics in the state because I knew BYU would be able to utilize that to their advantage. They are paying top dollar, despite their messaging, for talent both on the football and the basketball side. And I think it's something that Utah is still trying to figure out. Now, every school has the $20.5 million, quote-unquote, salaries they can pay their players. So there's no uneven playing field there. But there does appear to be an uneven playing field between the haves and the have-nots and the spenders and the teams that are still trying to figure it out. And I don't know where Utah is at with it. The question now comes down to, how does Utah get this thing back on their side? What's the dynamic? BYU gets the Big 12 invite. NIL becomes a reality. It catapults them into a level where now they're back on top. What needs to happen for Utah to get this thing back on their side, in your opinion?
The first thing they need to do is start controlling the controllables, right? Like the macro conversation is what's happening with NIL and all of those different things to attract the right people, get the right money for the right dudes to then make it a no-doubt thing again. Utah had the better players throughout their P5 era when BYU was an independent, more times than not. That was just the case. They had more depth. They had more explosive talent. Now that's evened out a little bit more, obviously, and BYU is operating at a supreme level in their conference with this new era. Tip your hat to them. They're doing a magnificent job. The one place I'll start with, I'm very surprised that Utah has some of the fundamental challenges that they have so far at times this season, where they're just inconsistent with the key things. So what, Merriweather makes a great block, and Bray goes off for a chunk yardage, sets them up to get in the red zone. And then a guy like Simmons misses the key block, and they stall on 4th and 1. So they've got to fix that first because they're really inconsistent with it. The Arizona State game, they were consistent with it. They beat a really good team, 42-10, and just mopped the floor with them. Okay, now, as far as the macro conversation going forward, yeah, Utah is going to need to continue to fine-tune what it takes to get the right money, to get the right dudes consistently, to really give themselves that ultimate best chance of being a premier team in the Big 12. To be that, remember when this first new era started, we thought, well, they're the team to beat. And they did not have a good season last year. And so now they come into this year, I think they're better, and they're going to need to be even better than that in those areas. I think it's really hard now because right when this came out, I thought, boy, BYU can be exceptional if they operate this the right way, and so can Notre Dame. I know they're not exactly the same, but
there are a lot of
they have the support that they need. And so one of the Bees players, Nico Cavadas, and I talk about it, and he goes, it would amaze you what guys would do just to be around the program, just to say they contributed. They'll go to unbelievable lengths. And I think BYU has that backing. So now Utah, to try and to make it identical, no. You have to do it in your own way. And this becomes something that it takes really great minds and really great creativity. And, you have to be forward-thinking in every different way. It's such a unique era where the guardrails seem to be way too loose. And so you have to maximize what this is and what is in your control.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of faith. Don't underestimate the power of having a fan base.
Oh, man.
Several of whom are very successful in careers, believing that if they support a football program, that furthers the faith that they rely upon just to live the way they want to live. Do not underestimate the power of that, where Notre Dame, if you're Catholic, Notre Dame football, if they're good, it's better for the faith that I adhere to. BYU football, if you're LDS, if they're good, it helps spread the message. So how much do you need? What do you want me to write this check for? Because that ultimately is part of the motivation. If you believe that that's going to help out the methodology and moral code that you follow, you're going to support it. There's a lot of similarities, I think, there between BYU and Notre Dame. And no, the gap isn't that big. It rarely is. But I've had more than a few guests on, Tony, that do believe as a result of NIL, and this is not just a Utah thing. Lane Kiffin actually gave an interview a couple of weeks ago where he doesn't believe the big dogs in the SEC have the same depth that they used to.
Yeah.
Like, there was a time where Nick Saban could be like, oh, my defensive end got hurt. It's all right. I have 3 5-stars behind him. And now if you're a 5-star sitting behind the starter, even if you're at Alabama, you get a call from Sark, or you get a call from Lane Kiffin himself. You get a call from Kirby Smart that says, look, you are a talented kid. You should be starting somewhere. You can start here, and by the way, I'll pay you $1 million. And so what happens is you lose your depth, and it just, in some ways, I've had a few guests this week say it doesn't look like Utah has the same depth and level. Look, this is a program that is built on beating you up. This is a program that's built on stuffing you in a locker, being physical on both sides. And there have been times, Tony, this year where it just hasn't been the case, namely Texas Tech and Brigham Young, where, Utah in some way lost these games in the trenches, which is a very uncoach Witt thing to see.
Yeah, and certainly I look at, so back to your point about the way some of these big name programs used to have like 3 5-star dudes. The one thing with the transfer portal and NIL that's been great is now there's some more parity.
Yes.
Now Indiana is a contender. Wait.
They go to Autzen and beat Oregon?
What?
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Indiana? So it is starting to show that you can be a program like that, operate in a certain way, and you've got a real shot. So Utah, I'm not saying that they're historically like Indiana, but you are a program. So you have Notre Dame and you have Indiana, not far from each other. And Indiana's at this level. They went to the playoffs last year, and then I think they'll go again this year, right? I think so. So I look at that and say, okay, well, what is it that Kurt is doing that a program like that can do to maximize the opportunity in the Big Ten, which Indiana is not one of the premier members of the Big Ten. They're an afterthought, unless you're talking basketball.
But even basketball, it's been a while since they've been consistent.
So you really get into this thing, and you're like, okay, there's clearly a formula here that can work, that can play into your favor, and that can help you be successful here. So Utah, I mean, I'd be a liar if I said I had all the answers. If I'm like, okay, Mark, here's what you do. Like, I don't. Sure. I'll never be the athletic director of a P4 university, and for all P4s out there, you're welcome. I would.
Here's Tony's resume.
Yes, I would take you to dead last in a hurry. But my point there is there's clearly a formula where when you're dealing with a comparison like this, something you can still be successful with.
Yep. And
so that is what Utah is going to have to continue to try and figure it out. I think that they're going to be as competitive as they can be. I think they're going to try to max out, the resources that they have. They have a great head coach who's very adaptable. I still think they have a great staff. It still shocks me in that game last Saturday that they weren't great at the little things, because that's something they've always hung their hat on.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to blame NIL or the transfer portal on that, but there is something to that.
The NIL and the transfer portal conversation is more about the talents, not about the coaching.
Yeah.
And there were some head-scratching decisions, head-scratching play calls, and to your point, players that just didn't execute in key moments. That ultimately allows BYU to get the win. Let me ask you this. Last year, BYU rolls up here, they beat Utah, then they lose 2 straight. The Kansas game down there, oh, my goodness, that's really the one that cost them, because the ASU game, look, that team won the league last year. Right. You understand that. Do you think it's different this time? Because the schedule ahead for BYU is not easy. They're at Iowa State this week where they're an underdog. They're going to go to Tech where they will be an underdog. Home against TCU, at Cincinnati, home against UCF. So do you have confidence that this group learned their lesson from the game a year ago, or is there a danger you're going to let the rivalry game get you and maybe drop one? Because they've got the path ahead. They could have a very special year.
You're very right about that. I mean, I think last year, certainly the Kansas game is evidence. The weird thing about that, they went into that Kansas game. If you look at the way they were trending, Spence, and I was actually filling in for you shortly after that, I said, look, BYU they haven't played well offensively last year. Mm-hmm. They actually hadn't played well offensively in a while. They escaped that Oklahoma State game. I thought, okay, State gave them that game. And then they didn't play well offensively, but prevailed against Utah. And I kept saying, like, you're not going to get away with this very long. Now, I don't think they have the same problems this year. BYU's been good. They've been undefeated. They keep finding a way, and they prevail in the end, and they do some things. But I think they're going to need to play a better four-quarter version over the next handful of weeks here if they want to end up with the type of season they expect to have. So they actually can hit a few more levels. I think that's the good news. But they're going to need to now, because you're not going to walk into this game this weekend and just kind of, well, we'll just copy and paste what we've always done and we'll get through it. No, this league's still tough, and you're going to go on the road and it's going to be difficult, and you're not always going to prevail each time by 3 points one way or another.
Yep.
So they're going to have to be even better than they have been. The good news is they're connected. They have a great coaching staff. They have great game planning. And I thought Kalani's message after that game was right on point. They could even take it to that level of sincerity and have that level of focus, but they still need to elevate. Like the random Kingston drop down the field. That was big on Saturday, but you still got through and got the victory. Bad interception, but there was the hold on Teo Johnson, gave you the ball back. You still got to flip the field. So the BYU must be better even than they have been if they want to get through that stretch, still being in the position they want to be in.
Last thing, we'll end on this. A 10-2 season would be amazing for Utah football. Now, for them to do that, they have to win out. I know there are some Ute fans are of the mindset I'd rather be 8-4, 6-6, and with a win over BYU than 10-2 with a loss. That's short-sighted, in my opinion. On the other side of the equation, I referenced BYU is going to be an underdog, I think, in a couple of the games. Utah should be favored in the rest of the games they play. That's my guess. Starting with Colorado on Saturday night, 8:15, then home against Cincinnati, at Baylor, home against K-State, at Kansas. I think they'll be favored in all 5 games. Do you give them a puncher's chance to get all 5? Because if you go 10-2, I don't know. We'll have to see what the landscape is. Brigham Young would have to lose 3 times. Texas Tech would have to lose 3 times because you lose. Well, one of those 2 would have to lose 3 times because you lose the tiebreaker to both schools. I still am not sure that even if they go 10-2, they're playing in Dallas, but they might be. Do you give Utah a puncher's chance to win out?
So win out, yeah, I give them a puncher's chance. I think if you go individually, game by game, you could say, yeah, you win that one, and then you win that one, and you're at home against Cincinnati, and then you know what, you should be favored here, and you should beat them, and you have better players in this matchup. Here's the part that concerns me with Utah. Too often you are inconsistent with the fundamentals. Too often you miss a timely tackle. Too often you don't block as a receiver the way you need to. And your receivers are not elite anyway. But the big thing is you can't miss key blocks on a 4th and 1. And I know I'm harping on that play, but it's like, no, that was as big a play as any. By the way, great tackle by Bamba.
Absolutely.
But if he just gets in the way,
or if Bray cuts back, but you're right. We're relying on Simmons to get that block.
That play is there. And so too often they have that lapse, Spence, in some key moments. So if this last game was not a wake-up call for the staff to tell the guys, and I'm sure they know this anyway, we cannot afford you to do your job sometimes here and there or when you really want to. All 11 must do their job all the time. And if they replicate what they did against Arizona State for 5 straight weeks, they're 10-2. And if they blink like they did at different times in different games over the course of those windows, then yeah, they'll find a way to lose a game that frustrates them even more. I think they'll win this weekend, but don't think they can, roll out of bed and, kind of get away with being sloppy here in the second quarter. No. This any given week, you blink, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of this. So Utah, they've been inconsistent with their focus. If they can sharpen that up, I think they can win. They can do what you're talking about.
Tony, you're the man. Great to see you. Be good, okay?
Hey, always, man. Hey, don't forget, by the way, at the ballpark, holiday lights. That's
nice.
The most underrated thing coming up this winter.
Okay.
Take you and your family to the holidays at the ballpark at afs.com. Go on out there between mid-November all the way through like January 3rd. Big window. Get your tickets for that. You and your family. You're going to love it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We got 2 hours in the books. We have 2 hours to go. Bill Bush, national championship college coach, who did some coaching around here with both Kalani and Kyle will stop by. And then we'll do a little sports court. Interesting day to do sports court with all the gambling news surrounding pro basketball. So 2 hours down, 2 hours to go on a Thursday afternoon. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Big weekend ahead in the landscape of college football. A couple of different dynamics at play as Utah tries to bounce back. After losing to BYU last Saturday, BYU will try to avoid the letdown that happened last year. After beating Utah in Salt Lake, they lost 2 straight games. Our next guest, national championship coach, coached in college football for a long time. He's become a good friend of the show, Bill Bush, on a Thursday afternoon. Bill, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Always love being on this show. My favorite, my highlights of the week. Every time I get a chance to come on and talk a little bit of sports with you guys.
Well, that is kind of you to say. We always appreciate your time, and of course, the dominant storyline here has been and will continue to be for a while. What happened last Saturday in Provo is BYU was able to beat Utah for the 3rd straight time, 24-21. Let's start here. Just your main big picture takeaways from the game last Saturday night in Provo.
It was one of those. It was a remarkable game to watch. There was times when you kind of felt that almost both sides would take over. There's a time when I thought Utah would do it. There's a time, obviously, when BYU was doing it. And so it went back and forth. First of all, just painting the picture, I've been lucky enough to coach in that game several times, but the setting looked ridiculous, how cool it was. The night looked incredible on TV. I'm watching it on my 90-inch screen TV, and I was in heaven watching that. But it was like, wow, was it a college football venue at its finest? And so that was fun to be able to see. You know, I suppose the biggest question mark, the things that comes up was, you know, there's twice in field goal range that they opted to go for it, they being Utah, and failed. And I would imagine, did that kind of take over the storyline a little bit, or was that something that wasn't viewed very much?
Oh, my goodness. It's all anybody talks about, Coach. And Kyle himself has been asked about it multiple times, his media availability on Monday. And then we host the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show with Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. And he's just continued to double down on that's what the analytics told him to do. So he just relied on what the numbers said in those situations.
Absolutely. And like I said, there's some that we have a belief system. Stick with your belief system with it. I would say this. There wasn't both times when it happened, I felt they would get the first down. I'm not sure what your thoughts were, but I wasn't like, oh, man, you've got to kick this. The chance of converting here is so slim, especially with an athletic quarterback and different things. So I didn't think prior to the call where I was like screaming at the TV, don't do this, take the points. I was like, no, I like the call. It's a classic hindsight where it's like, oh, wow, that would have been something to gain a little bit of momentum at that time. And obviously when the game ends at 3 and there's a chance that there was 6, you're always going to get asked those questions. But when you have a commitment of that, those things are thought out well in advance. When we get to a certain time or spot of what we're going to do and what's going to happen. So I just trust Coach Whittingham has a better pulse for his team and his thoughts of what he wants to get done during that time. So I'm totally on board with what Coach Whittingham's selection on that. But I'm sure it was a dicey bit of conversation for fans because it's always easy to look back, obviously.
Well, coming into the game, to underscore your point, Utah was the number 1 team in the country at converting 3rd and 4th downs. They were elite at that. And, you know, it's an odd thing to do when it comes to unpacking this entire conversation because if they convert and score touchdowns, Kyle Whittingham is a genius this week. But because of a couple of one was a missed block, the other was a really good play by Brigham Young up front. And then the 4th and 7 is one to dig into that I think is interesting. But there were a couple of just key plays that the players didn't make for the first 2 fourth down calls that ultimately didn't go Utah's way. But I did want to ask you about the 4th and 7 because, I don't know how much you are familiar with kind of how that went down. So 4th and 7, and the kicker for Utah had a chance during the timeout to take a practice kick, and he shanked it wide right. Not like hit the uprights, shanked it wide right. So Coach Witt alluded to the fact that after seeing the practice kick and how far Dylan Curtis missed it, then they decided to go 4th and 7, and it was a pass play to Tobias Merriweather. It was not a great throw by Devin. Tobias didn't have much of a chance to make the play. And then BYU ran down and scored. So I wonder what you make of the final 4th down call 4th and 7 from your own 28 when you had a chance to put 3 on the board?
I would imagine at that time, what the most important part would be, I don't know if just that one shank or that one missed kick would do that. I would imagine there has to be some thoughts from practice also. There has to be maybe some thoughts on your kicker of just like, you know what, I don't feel great about this. I don't know if it's because everyone's had a kicker you feel very confident in, and if they would have missed that kick like that, you'd been like going, oh, man, I'm so glad he missed that one because he won't miss this one. So maybe there was more to it, to the story. But, yeah, it was a huge play, obviously. And did I feel they had a chance also on the 4th and 7? I did. But I would imagine there might be, and I have no knowledge of this, maybe some underlying struggles potentially in practice. Like I said, if you have a kicker you feel great about and he misses, it's like, oh man, I'm so happy he missed that one because when he does it again, he'll hit it. Would be the general thought. So what I would say for everything, because being through this on the coaching side is, especially when it's a Coach Whittingham, is that this is all calculated. There's just not a lot. There's not flying by the seat of my pants, and so he has a great feel for everything he's doing, and sometimes they don't work. Just for simple things that didn't happen. And I didn't realize that they were number 1 in the country on 3rd and 4th downs. That even paints the picture even better for me of why you would go for those in that spot. Even though I thought it was a good time that the analysts say that, what else said was that we've been doing this all year long at the highest level there is in Division I football. So not a bad choice.
Yeah, the numbers, the numbers for Dylan Curtis, the place kicker for Utah, he's 1 for 4 on the season, 40 to 49 yards. Now, interestingly enough, Bill, he did hit the only 50-yarder he's attempted. It was a 54-yard field goal attempt that went through the uprights, 3 of 3 from 30 to 39, but 1 of 4 from 40 to 49, and that kick would have been about a 44-yard kick. And ultimately, touchdowns are more important than field goals, as we all know, and Utah has been elite in the red zone as well. But let me ask you this dynamic, okay? So sure. When it comes to what the analytics say, is there a difference between just leaning on the numbers when it's BYU and Provo as opposed to if it's like Arizona in Salt Lake? Because I've had a couple of guests make the point on the show, when you take that risk in a game like that, with a fan base like that, and it doesn't go your way, the momentum shift and the fans go crazy, and then suddenly, you're really up against the 8 ball. Is there anything there? Like, okay, yes, the analytics say this, but it's a different moment when momentum is in play and passion is at a 10 out of 10. Is there any consideration to maybe zig even when the numbers say to zag?
I wouldn't push back real hard on that. No, I wouldn't say that's an idiot statement at all. Because if you do kick the field goal, which, like you said, it does, it actually probably takes a little bit of a zip out of the stadium. We kicked the field goal, we had success. Okay, you are correct on big plays, and we know that that stadium can turn and loud, and it is a incredible place to play. And it is. And I've been on the other side. When there's been a big play against me, and it's daunting what that place is like. And so there is something to that. That okay, in this game, if we can just get this 3 here and be able to do this, it'll take a little bit off the edge, off the crowd. If we miss or we go for on 4th and we don't make it, it will be a big momentum play. And there is a difference in the momentum, obviously, in a game like this. There's just so much emotion inside the stadium, and it does. You can feed off of that. So I think it does. I really do. I think in the end, it's a simple thing. Is what do we think of our team? There's times the analytics might say, "Hey," the analytics say, "Go for it." But you just might know that your team, like, I don't feel great about this. I think this is more based off the what you gave me and the numbers was analytics said yes, and we're the best in the country on 3rd and 4th and short. So that adds up. But what the fans pointed out isn't some idiotic statement either. That in this game sometimes it can be a little bit different with the momentum and what getting the 3 would do. Wouldn't change the game dramatically, but it wouldn't also. That crowd I'm sure was nuts on those 3 situations, especially the ones that were marginal distance.
We had Whit on the show prior to the game, and as I was introing him, I said, "Man, this is such a fun week." And he interrupted me. He said, "Wait, did you say fun?" And I said, I said, "Okay, what is the Kyle Whittingham adjective?" And he said, "Intense." As somebody who has coached this week, the Utah BYU rivalry game week, what is that like as it pertains to the way Witt approaches it?
Well, I would say this: everything is done the same. There is no, man, we're going to do a special thing, and we're going to call up in the middle of practice, and we're going to have somebody come out and talk to the team. We're going to do something more, and no, because really what you worry about the most is you want to stay on schedule, do everything exactly the same, and B, your energy has to be ready to go when the foot hits the ball in that stadium. So I've seen some teams get so worked up by the time they get to Saturday, they're worn out. And so that's a little bit of a difference too. So I know everything's done the same, but and I'm a big fan of this too. And I know Urban Meyer was like this. And all games are not the same. That's a dumb statement. They're not the same. They all count the same. The win, the loss counts on the left side or the right side of the W and the L. But it does. You come to Utah and BYU to play in that game, and you come to certain places to play in epic games. You don't come to Utah in hopes of one day playing against Baylor. You come to there to play against BYU. So the magnitude of the game is much bigger. And you're just basically, like I said, you have to try to control your emotions. And it's like I said, I've been lucky with the places I've been, from the, Wisconsin, Minnesota, to play at, LSU, what it was like to play, the Florida game, and what that rivalry was, every year that you had to play that game, playing in Alabama, all these big games. Nothing was ever bigger. I know that. It might be the same, but nothing bigger than Utah BYU. I've never felt that kind of, almost like you just feel it in your chest, especially when you pull into Provo and into that stadium. It's just a different feel. And I didn't grow up in it like Coach Whittingham did. He mentioned on one of the things I was listening to that I think there's 52 or 53 years maybe in a row that there's been a Whittingham involved in this game, and that's insane. And then he's been able to be part of this, for 30 years. Nobody gets that kind of a treat in life, to be part of the most intense rivalry you've ever felt, and also get to be part of it for that long. So very cool, but it is intense.
Of the 104 games that have been played, there has been a Whittingham involved in 52 of them, which is, to your point, absolutely wild. There really is no name that's more synonymous with this rivalry than Whittingham, period. And, this one, Coach, is going to sting for a while. And I'm not taking anything away from BYU or Kalani. They deserve the credit for winning the game and making the plays when they needed to. But Utah was better on third down. They had more total yards. They had more passing yards. They had more rushing yards. They had more yards per rush. It came down to this. Excuse me. Utah, 12 penalties, BYU 5. Utah, 2 turnovers, BYU 0. It's just these minor mistakes that Utah makes, and then combine that with the opportunistic ability of BYU to make the plays that they made when they had to.
Oh, and the turnovers are just if you said it, if you just afterwards you hadn't seen the game and you just said, hey, FYI, BYU had no turnovers and Utah had 2. Who do you think won? Well, everyone in the world's going to say, well, obviously BYU won, because you just won't lose with you won't win a game with 2 turnovers to none in a game that is matched up fairly evenly. And so the ability to take care of the football, the penalties, rough. You can overcome those. You can overcome the turnovers. The middle of the field safety got a great jump on the one ball that was down the field, and that's a long turnover, so that's not quite as brutal. Like that was probably about a 35, 40-yard pass when that ball got intercepted. So that's not a death blow. Not like the ball got ran back for another 25 yards or something. But just when you turn it over, that will. When you say sting, I can talk about it. I've felt it. I know what it's like, but I couldn't feel what that is for Kyle right now, for that sting, because it is the fan base, everything about it. And who knows what the number is, but, there is a chance, and this has never been discussed with me and Coach Wood, even though, like I said, we text quite often, but is this his last Utah BYU game? And so that makes it even harder, I would imagine, in the sting of things to be able to get through. And then also 2 losses in in the Big 12 now, that would be very difficult to get to the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I gently alluded to the potential of this being his last game during our interview. I did my best radio black magic to try to not ask him directly and be respectful. And he essentially said that at his age, you have to consider whether or not you're overstaying your welcome. There are people more plugged in to the situation than I am that firmly believe this is his last year, Bill. That's kind of the understanding I have.
Yeah, and like I said, that's one thing we've never discussed, but there was a feeling from just everything I could see and feel in between last year and this year that last year was like potentially last year was his last year, and he wasn't going to go out like last year went. And so it kind of led to be like, I've got another year in me, which obviously he does. Mm-hmm. And he has more than that in him also. But like I said, I've had no conversations with him, but I would imagine that all the pundits that you talk to would say the same thing. Like, I believe this is his last year, and that does make this game so much more of a meaningful game when it's your last time. I know myself. I was pulling very hard for him in this game. For that reason, because I felt it might be his last game. When I read with that, with that number of times there's been a Whittingham involved, I was like, I really would like to see this end in this fashion to be able to wrap things up in that way. I know that would be very tough on him.
Let me get your thoughts on Brigham Young, because last year, after winning here in Salt Lake, they lost 2 straight games. The intensity of that week is tough to, even if you win, you're probably gassed. And they lost to Kansas at home, a Kansas team they were better than. And then they went on the road to lost to ASU. ASU won the league last year. Like, that's not, it's not like a horrible loss. But the rest of the way, BYU is now in the catbird seat. They're the only Big 12 team left that's undefeated. They're undefeated in conference. Cincinnati is also undefeated in conference. But the rest of the way, they're at Iowa State. They're at Texas Tech, TCU at home, at Cincinnati, home against UCF. They'll probably be favored in 3 of the final 5 games. They're a slight underdog against Iowa State. Have you seen enough from Kalani's group this year to believe that they'll handle winning the rivalry game better and not get got the way they did a year ago?
Well, yes, I do. When I watch them, I do feel that way. Going to Iowa State, really hard place to play. But, and if you guys are aware of this, but their 2 starting corners are out for the season.
Yep.
And that has really, really put a damper on their season. So I don't think they're walking into the same Iowa State team that Iowa State was 3 to 4 weeks ago. And so I think that's a big advantage. Obviously, the Cincinnati and Tech game, but I'm not sure where Tech is with their quarterback injury also, with how that plays out. But I believe sometimes going on the road is not a bad deal. And I don't think they're going up against it, like I said, an Iowa State team that is what it's been. But Iowa State's got their back against the wall, and that's always a scary team to play because there's certain games you want. And if you're at Iowa State and you've had a couple losses, you want this game really bad because not I say you want to win, but you're glad you're playing an undefeated team because now you have your fan base excited, you have the stadium excited, you have your players excited because they can fix a lot of things in one game. So I think that will make it difficult. Can they do it? Yes, because one thing that stands out is just that the true freshman quarterback there is that about him is that he just makes plays right when you need him, and he keeps plays alive, and he makes plays with his feet. That's all I talk about all the time when I do different media stuff is just watch these quarterbacks who make plays when the coaching's over. And that's what he does, and he has the ability to do that. He's going to be like a Diego Pavia type of player. He's kind of a Tebow-ish type player. He just makes plays tough. And so with that at quarterback, and it seems like he stayed pretty healthy. I don't know if I missed anything on that, but I think having him, and then like I said, they've been solid on defense, but I think they'll be in better shape than what they were last year. And then you have a history too to say, hey, we did this last year, and this is what happened in the next 2 games. So you do get to pull from that right away on your team, and you can coach your team very hard off of a win because you don't have to convince them when it's a loss. Sometimes you have to get them convinced that they can win again, and when they win, you get to coach them very hard. So I'm sure that Kalani's done a great job of that in his staff this week.
Last thing, Coach, in about 30 seconds, Utah has a chance now to, I really think, make some noise because I think they're going to be favored in their final 5 games. 10-2 would be awesome. 7-2 in conference would be a great year, even with a loss to BYU. Do you give them a puncher's chance to do that?
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, just watch the game. 2 turnovers, and more yards. You name it. Third down. All the things you really look for against the team that's leading the league right now. So I sure give them a chance to be able to do that, and that would be an incredible bowl game. And sometimes you never know how things fall out. Just never would think that if they're 10-2, it'll be we might have a chance still at getting in the championship game. I haven't crunched all the numbers, and right now that's the ones like you don't even look at right now. But you never know what happens. I mean, things can happen, injuries happen, all kinds of crazy stuff. But a 10-2 year would be a very, very good year. With always a little salty because of the loss, obviously in Provo.
Coach, thank you, sir, for the time. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll chat soon.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, Bill Bush, we will catch a break, but we'll bring in Ryan from the Dish Bros before we do that. Make the switch to Dish. If you're a sports fan, I can promise you that's the best spot. You'll save a bunch of money with the promotions. You'll also save money on internet options, too. It's 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
It is a great time to call. Offer is going to go away. We just got an announcement from Dish that the offer with a 3 months free is going to end next week. Listen, this is your opportunity. Call up, get the 2-year promotion, get the 3 months free of Dish's top package. This is worth more than $450. Plus, we'll throw in the NFL Red Zone, the Showtime and Paramount Plus free for 4 months. Plus, also with the multi-sports pack, you get that included, and we'll also throw in dinner at JCW's. Great opportunity to upgrade, get the best system, get the best price when you call the Dish Pros. Take advantage of this offer, 3 months free, 2-year price guarantee, the best hopper system. It'll save you a ton of cash. It also can help with internet, too. You just got to call 424-DISH. It's 801-424-DISH.
Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Want to tell you about my friends at America First Credit Union. We had Dave live in studio the other day. Really, really great dude. If you're not currently thrilled with your banking situation, but you just haven't made a change because it's a hassle, well, right now is a great time to do it. Better customer service than what you're dealing with right now. And they've got a new member offer where you get $100 just for opening a savings and a checkings account. And then one of the cool things that they do is they really help you teach your kids how money works. And you should do that at a young age. A $50 offer for your teens and a new kids member offer that's up to the age of 17. Go to americafirst.com/deals for more information. They just released a very sleek Utah Jazz Visa debit card, nice and purple with the logo on it. They are also the official credit union of U of U Athletics, so you should support your team with the official Utah Athletics Visa debit card, which is free with America First checking options. You get some benefits that are really, really cool. If you've ever tried to buy or sell tickets on the secondary market, total pain. You get great ticketing offers, exclusive ticketing offers and prices to Utah sporting events on Ticketmaster.com. This might be the coolest thing. They do this for the Jazz, too. You can get into Delta Center early. You can get into Rice-Eccles Stadium early. So it's early game day entry. You beat the crowd and get into Rice-Eccles Stadium up to 2 hours prior to kickoff. 30 minutes sooner than the general public. Simply show a valid ticket and your America First debit card to the security officers at Gate L in the southeast corner. You get a bunch of really cool discounts at the Jazz team store. When the triple-double streak actually ends, you're going to get 32% off the next day for Jazz team store merch. So definitely check it out, americafirst.com or americafirst.com/deals. Good day to have our friends Garrett and Preston Handy on the show. There's a little bit of legal news. I'm not sure if you've heard about this, so we'll bring them in coming up on the other side. Get back to some football in the 5 o'clock hour and then say goodnight in time for actual football between the Chargers and the Vikings. Thursday Drive, and good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. It is indeed sports court time. Good day for that. There's a little bit of legal news floating around. Not sure if you've heard. Garrett and Preston Handy, gentlemen, happy Thursday. How we doing?
Hey, Spence. How you doing? Hey, Spence.
All good here. So let's jump into it. We're going to separate this into two different portions. Of course, Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, who played in the NBA. All three have been arrested. Let's start with the Chauncey Billups side of this. What do we need to know?
Yeah, Spence, hit the news today. Big headlines that Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones, isn't mentioned as much, have been arrested by the FBI as part of two different separate illegal gambling schemes. Let's start. We're going to just treat the Chauncey Billups story as one story, and then Terry Rozier. But yeah, rigged shuffling, X-ray technology tables, crypto fraud, La Cosa Nostra. I mean, all reads like a big crime thriller, doesn't it? I mean, Netflix is excited about what's going to happen there. But Chauncey Billups, as we know, is Portland Trailblazers' current coach. He's a Hall of Famer, was a really great player. He, along with Damon Jones, is part of this one. It's been alleged were involved in a illegal poker operation that has ties to the mafia. I love them reading this off. The Bonanno family, the Gambino family, the Genovese crime families, all were part of this illegal poker scheme. What's been claimed is that Chauncey Billups, among others, would get involved in high-stakes poker games. He would also bring guests to these games, and Chauncey Billups being there apparently added legitimacy to it. But the claim is that these games were run by organized crime families, and they were rigged. They were rigged. One of the things it claims is that they had X-ray tables that would read the cards from underneath. So obviously somehow it was transmitted to the other players what these cards had. Also illegal shuffling machines were involved. Claims that this has been going on for years. The FBI has been chasing this for years. Scammed tens of millions of dollars of profits and fraud. Also claims that people that got involved in these games that couldn't pay up ran into some issues with the mafia and how they handle things. But now Chauncey Billups, most importantly, I mean, he's been let go from his job at least indefinite or leave right now. But he's been charged with, among other things, wire fraud conspiracy and money laundering conspiracy. Not a good look. It's really crazy.
All right, Garrett, what do you got, bud?
Well, I just think it's interesting the victims in these cases in the poker games. I mean, these are obviously people who I think the draw is wow, I get to play poker with a celebrity, someone famous like Chauncey Billups, and they're willing to do that and thought this was a fair, straight game, and obviously it's not. As Preston mentioned, it's got the backing of a bunch of mafia families, so pretty wild.
All right, let's move over to the Terry Rozier side of this, who, like Chauncey Billups, was actually at work last night. He was sitting on the bench for the Miami Heat and then got a knock on his Orlando hotel room door this morning and is also in a jail cell. What do we know about this side?
Yeah, so the FBI director in the press release this morning really called this an insider trading case against the NBA, and that's what it is, because Terry Rozier essentially is using inside information that he knows about other players and coaches and teams, and it's not just him, of course, but Damon Jones listed on this one too, that he's using this inside information to then give that to co-conspirators, other people that are named, so that they can then place winning bets on games. And a lot of these are prop bets that happen. But I thought it was interesting. I looked at the indictment, and they've listed the defendants, like they do in an indictment, and then also listed all their nicknames. So there's Spook, Vizinio, Sugar, D. Jones, Peso, and Scary Terry, who is Terry Rozier. So I thought it was interesting that the Justice Department did that in the indictment. But and then we have found out the NBA has placed them on leave, also Chauncey Billups. But this is not so different from the Jonte Porter case, but this is just much more extensive. And what happens when Terry Rozier gives, these tips to place winning bets to these co-conspirators, and then they split the money with Terry, they're in some deep, deep trouble here. So, if you look at the success rate for the Justice Department with indictments and getting convictions, it's in the 90s%. It's huge. So, does not look good for these guys.
All right, moving over to a story out of the world of golf. Jack Nicklaus, this is a story that we have covered since it broke. Wait, Preston, did you have anything to add there? Sorry, I didn't mean to skip your portion.
No, Garrett covered it really well.
All right,
yeah.
my bad. Jack Nicklaus wins $50 million against Nicklaus Companies, ironically enough, about the Live Golf claim. What do we have going on here?
Yeah, this is interesting. We talk about cases a lot, and we've talked about this one, but this one actually went to trial and had a jury award. But the background of this is, aside from being one of the, or arguably the greatest golfer of all time, Jack Nicklaus, he, after golfing, he spawned all kinds of businesses, most notably probably his golf course design. People like to say this is a Nicklaus design. And, he had the Nicklaus Companies. Well, back in about 2007, he sold exclusive rights of the Nicklaus Company. He sold his rights to the Nicklaus Company, a partner of his, Howard Muhlestein. As part of that sale, they got all the promotion, marketing, branding. They got to do all of this under his name, which lended a lot of credibility. Well, in 2017, he resigned from the board, and as part of him resigning from the board, he had a 5-year non-compete. Well, come around 2022, and he wants to be involved in golf course design. Well, the Nicklaus Companies, they sue Jack Nicklaus. They sue him, saying that he's breached his contract, he's tortious interference, all kinds of these. They sued him in New York, which is important. They chose this forum. Well, this goes along, and this is a nasty litigation, and ultimately it's decided that he has met his non-compete and he's not bound by it anymore. But during this litigation, Muhlestein and some of the partners, they float this idea that, and we've talked about this I don't know how many times, the Live Golf controversy and all of that, and Live Golf started out as a real stain. People really didn't like the Live Golf change and everything like that, and a lot of people still don't, but it's died down and it's kind of going forward. But anytime you heard Live Golf, it had a black mark on it. Well, these guys floated the idea that Jack Nicklaus was going to join Live Golf. He was going to help promote them, be on their board, help them promote this for $750 million. They also claimed that Jack was suffering from dementia. This was all part of this litigation. Well, after this happened, Jack, he in Florida chose a really good forum, sued the Nicklaus Companies and Howard Muhlestein for defamation. We've talked about defamation a number of times, and what defamation is when someone states or writes a comment or something that's not true, and that it's disseminated and it causes damage. So this litigation is going on, and you don't hear things. A lot of times things are settled, but this thing actually went to trial, and the jury agreed with Jack Nicklaus, and they came out and said, and I think it's interesting, his lawyer, he said, as part of his closing, he said, hey, these guys wanted to create a story that Jack Nicklaus is just an old guy who sold out to the Saudis, an old crazy guy who sold out to the Saudis. Well, the jury came back and said that the Nicklaus Companies have subjected him to ridicule, hatred, mistrust, distrust, and contempt. And they awarded $50 million. How they came up with this calculation, but I'm sure Jack's team came up with a calculation, what it had lost him, the damage it had done to him. But they sided with him and awarded him $50 million. So now there's a judgment. There's been a verdict and a judgment. A big victory for the Golden Bear. Preston,
are you currently in the middle of a high-speed police chase?
Am I?
Okay. Somebody's got a lot of police sirens going on in the background.
There is something going outside our window here. I did hear that.
All right. Garrett, you're up, buddy.
Well, I mean, they really did. I even in their complaint against Jack Nicklaus, their original complaint, as Preston mentioned, where they alluded that he was, in negotiation with the Saudis and their investment fund, they said they had to step in to save Mr. Nicklaus from himself. And I think this sort of condescending type of language, and like Preston said, treating him like he was, kind of this old fuddy-duddy, that's really come back to haunt them now with this judgment.
Moving over to another case situation that we've discussed, it's the NASCAR antitrust deal with the Michael Jordan undertones. It's going to mediation. They're hoping to strike a deal. What's going on here?
Yeah, it did go to mediation, and mediation actually, we've found out now, failed. And so right now it's headed for trial in December. But from what I'm understanding, there was a summary judgment hearing this morning. So maybe next week we'll know more. I kind of doubt the judge will grant summary judgment. But just to provide a little more background on this, I know we've talked about it before, but this grows out of Michael Jordan's his NASCAR team and another team called Front Row, and they had sued NASCAR, alleging that they're a monopoly. And it really grows out of this charter system that NASCAR has, where they award these charters to the teams. But it says that NASCAR really, they just have such a monopoly over stock car motor racing. They're buying up circuits and different races, and you just can't get out there and compete. NASCAR, again, they have a monopoly on everything. And so a lot of it looked at, like, early on, and this was NASCAR's response, was that this was just a kind of a ploy by Jordan and his team to negotiate better terms on their charter, because they held out and didn't sign. And so as it goes on, I mean, they couldn't come to terms. This was a court-ordered mediation, and that happens sometimes, where the judge says, hey, let's get you guys together in a room and see if you can settle this case, and see if we can avoid trial and you guys can work this out. But again, Mr. Competitive himself, Michael Jordan, what do you know? Apparently, and maybe both sides, right? I shouldn't just say it's Michael Jordan, but nobody willing really to compromise here, and so the case is moving forward.
All right, Preston, your turn, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, this case is going to trial. I'd say from a win-loss standpoint, MJ has lost a lot of these. He's pushed for a lot of preliminary injunctions, which basically was proverbial get your cake and eat it too. He wanted to not sign the charter, but be able to continue to race in the NASCAR circuit. There are plenty of people that are kind of in favor of, I'm sure on the sidelines, in favor of Michael Jordan, him winning and maybe redefining the sport a little bit and setting some new rules. But I think there are also people have come forward and they're kind of in favor of NASCAR and how things have done and how NASCAR has created some stability. They've got licensing agreements and that type of thing. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, it might redefine the sport.
All right, final one for today. It stems from the Utah BYU football game, but not this year. It was last year. A water bottle was thrown near the BYU cheer, I believe it was the cheer coach. And let's see here as I'm refreshing this. A fan has been sentenced after this incident at last year's Utah BYU game. Fill us in.
Yeah, so everybody heard about this last year that following the BYU game, a fan, apparently a Utah fan, threw a water bottle and it hit a woman in the head, and it's the claim was she was knocked unconscious for 10 to 15 seconds, so hit pretty hard, had a concussion over the last year, has dealt with, emotional issues and some concussion issues, and now it's been reported that, it says that she's been suffering from ongoing horrible headaches, dizziness, vision problems. So it wasn't just a one-time thing. It actually caused some real injury and damages, some medical treatment, that type of thing. It looks like the fan was charged with third-degree felony aggravated assault and pleaded guilty to reduced assault charge. The sentence, he's been a day in jail, 2-year probation, and pay a $2,000 fine. Was there anything else on it, Garrett? I was kind of scrolling through and lost the story. Was he any other sentencing?
No, it sounds like that's it.
All right, then we'll leave that there unless there's anything else, Garrett, you want to add to it.
Well, the only thing I was going to add is he did mention the judge, and I'm going to call him a kid. He was 18 years old, and so he hasn't been named. It's a misdemeanor charge. But the judge really, in the sentencing, kind of reprimanded him to say, hey, let's not forget this is just a game. It's just a game, and now someone's been hurt, and you're being sentenced, and so apparently it did come out in the hearing though that he's headed to Utah State, so he's getting out of town and fresh start. So good luck to everybody in all of this, and it's just a game.
No nasty rivalry there.
Indeed, it is just a game, and it's a game that's very important to a lot of people, but it is the very definition of zero sum. Anyway. That's enough advice dispensed during this segment today. Gentlemen, before I say you lose, for any of our listeners who have legal questions, how can they get a hold of you over at Handy and Handy?
Yeah, well, give us a call, please, with any legal questions that you have. You can reach us at 801-264-6677, especially in the area of personal injury, which is what we do, help people who've been in accidents, or you can go to our website, handylawutah.com.
All right, guys, always appreciate the time. Have an excellent weekend, and as always, go Utes.
Go Utes. Thanks,
Go
man.
Utes.
Garrett and Preston Handy from the law firm of Handy and Handy. For any legal questions you have, give them a call. Really, really good guys. Appreciate their time today. Certainly on a day with a massive story regarding allegations pertaining to betting in pro basketball. We'll get back to some of this stuff in the 5 o'clock hour. We're high speed ahead to Thursday Night Football. Your weekend of pro football starts tonight with the Chargers and the Vikings. Aaron Jones will play. By the way, he just got upgraded to active, so good news for Vikings fans. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program on a Thursday afternoon comes your way next right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time, Thursday afternoon style. 3 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. It has been one of those beautiful Chamber of Commerce Utah days outside. About 63 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Happy Thursday to you. We have a good little forecast throughout the course of Saturday. On Sunday, it might be a little chilly with some rain. But for the Ute game coming up at 8:15 on Saturday night, we're expecting clear skies and pretty warm temps up until about kickoff. It'll be chilly, but no rain in the forecast, so that's always good. But as it is every single day, it is good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson producing the show today, booking the show today. We've had a fun show with a lively bunch of topics to get to. We'll bring in Coach Bill Bush coming up in just a little bit to talk to some college football. We'll talk Holy War. Of course, Bill coached here in state. He won a national championship with LSU. Get his take on some of the fourth down decision-making. We'll get his take on a bounce-back game for Utah coming up against Colorado. Do a little BYU, who's now in the driver's seat as it pertains to the race for the Big 12 championship. We will say goodnight tonight at 6 o'clock, and we're going to send you over to Thursday night football between the Vikings and the Chargers. Aaron Jones Jr. has been upgraded to active tonight for those of you that are updating fantasy football lineups. Chargers are about a 3-point favorite. Over-under is about 44.5. Of course, the Utah Jazz opened up their season last night, as we discussed earlier today with Tony Parks, and they looked awesome. It was really, really fun. Very impressive. We know Will Hardy is a hell of a coach, and they look like a team, at least for one night, that might be pretty exciting to watch. It's an 82-game season. To keep up that kind of level of intensity and effort is tough to ask for a team that still is very, very young. But a great game from Lowry Marketing, really great. A historic game, actually, for Walker Kessler, who did not miss a shot. He was 7 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 2 from 3, even 6 of 8 from the line. Walker had 22 points, 9 boards, 4 assists, 4 blocks, and 2 steals. That's actually a stat line that's only been done once in NBA history. It was back in 1976. So Walker Kessler, big time. Svi Mikhailuk got the start, which was an interesting decision. According to reports, Ace Bailey has not been well. So we only saw Ace for 20 minutes, had a really athletic breakaway dunk, but he looked gassed pretty quickly. Only a couple of points for Ace, 4 boards, couple of assists, but he is not feeling well. A very impressive 18 minutes from Walter Clayton Jr. I am going to go out on a limb with a bold prediction and tell you Walter Clayton Jr. will be starting for the Utah Jazz sooner rather than later. Now, Isaiah Collier is still recovering from apparently a hamstring injury, so we did not see Collier last night. Bryce Sensabaugh has been putting in work, knocked down a bunch of shots. He had 20 points off the bench. Keontae George is an interesting player to watch for this year. A lot of people around the organization have applauded Keontae for his approach during the offseason. 1 of 7 from 3. It'll continue to be a thing as far as his efficiency from the floor, but he did have 9 assists to only 3 turnovers in 30 minutes. He had 16 points, 9 assists. Everyone who played really, really well. We saw a healthy Taylor Hendricks in 19 minutes, put up 13 and 5. Hit a couple of threes, 2 of 3 from 3. So that was a fun night. It was a very impressive win for the Utah Jazz over an LA Clipper team that has at least 3, maybe 4 future Hall of Famers. John Collins back in the building, and they played their guys. I mean, Harden played, Kawhi played, Zubac played, Brad Beal played. None of them played very well. The Jazz defensive effort last night cannot be underscored. For the past 2 years, the worst defensive team in basketball has been the Utah Jazz. And that was different last night. It looked like a team that is coached the right way. And if the Jazz do one thing, this is going to sound very elementary. There are so many teams in this league that coast through the regular season. Either they sit players or they don't play hard and save themselves, for the spring, save themselves for playoff basketball. If the Jazz simply show up, try hard, and play the way they played last night, who knows what this year could look like. Now, I'm not going to make any bold proclamation because we need to continue to remind ourselves one bottom line. This draft coming up next year, I know you guys don't want to talk about the draft. This is what we did last year. This draft coming up this year is thought to be another very historic draft class at the top. The Jazz own a top 8 protected draft pick. And if they're out of the bottom 8, that pick goes to Oklahoma City, who, of course, is the defending champs and they own everybody's draft capital. That is an asset you cannot let go. Even in the name of winning some more games than you thought you would, you have to do everything you can to maintain that draft capital, to maintain that draft asset. It could turn into a Darren Peterson. It could turn into an A.J. DeBonsa. It could turn into a Boozer. And then suddenly you add another piece to this thing. Because ultimately, even though last night was fun, how far away are you from the top teams in the West? The answer is you're pretty far away. But credit the Jazz last night, man. I love having Jazz basketball back, love having NBA basketball back, and the Jazz looked really, really good. All right, according to Sport Track, Chauncey Billups earned over $106 million in 17 NBA seasons as a player. And the reports are he's making about $4.75 million per year as the head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers. Terry Rozier, his career earnings $133 million in his 10-year NBA career, and currently is being paid $26.6 million this year with the Miami Heat. Why do I bring that up? Well, in case you missed it, a massive bombshell today, as last night Chauncey Billups was coaching the Portland Trail Blazers in a loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. This morning, Chauncey Billups received a knock on his door at 6 a.m., and he is currently in jail. Terry Rozier last night rode the bench for the Miami Heat in Orlando. This morning, Terry Rozier received a knock on his Orlando hotel door, and he is currently in jail. Damon Jones spent 11 years in the NBA, wasn't a very good player, but very close friends with LeBron James. He has also been arrested. Okay, so a couple of highlights here, then we'll catch a break. This is an illegal gambling and sports rigging operation that spanned years across 11 states. In total, 34 individuals have been arrested, including 13 mafia members. The mafia is involved here. The case involves La Cosa Nostra, which is the Italian mafia. Charges include illegal gambling, wire fraud, and extortion. Now, there are two separate incidents, and this is very important. The first incident involves 6 defendants accused of participating in a sports corruption scheme that exploited insider information involving NBA players and teams. Okay, so this is the Terry Rozier, Damon Jones side of this. The defendants leveraged their connections to place prop bets based off of confidential insider information, winning tens of thousands of dollars. The second indictment involves 31 defendants. This is the Chauncey Billups side, charged with participating in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. Okay, they used high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed. Okay, so a couple things here. Jonte Porter, now you guys remember the Jonte Porter story when he was playing with the Raptors. We now know that Jonte Porter was threatened by the mafia to participate in sports gambling schemes because of his own gambling debt. We now know that Damon Jones, and by the way, all of these things are allegations, need to be clear here. Damon Jones is accused of leveraging his friendship with LeBron James to get insider information that he would then pass on to the mafia, and they would bet on games that LeBron played in. So the teams that were bet on during the sports gambling scheme include the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, Terry Rozier was in Charlotte before he was in Miami. This is interesting. The Portland Trail Blazers are listed as one of the teams that had action on them. Chauncey Billups at this point has not been it has not been alleged that Chauncey is part of the basketball fixing side of this. He's part of the underground poker games. What's been alleged is Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones would go out in the community and recruit rich people to play card games and say, hey, do you want to come hang out with me and my famous basketball player buddies? But the fact that the Blazers are on the list of the teams that were bet on during the sports gambling scheme is something to keep an eye on. The Lakers are listed. Of course, LeBron plays for the Lakers. Then finally, the Toronto Raptors, and that's where Jonte Porter played as well. The poker scheme involved the defendants utilizing altered shuffling machines to read the cards in the deck and then relayed that information to an offside operator, and the offside operator was known as the quarterback, who then sent that information to somebody at the table. They also utilized other cheating technologies, including poker chip trays that read cards through hidden cameras, special contact lenses, and glasses that could read mark cards and X-ray poker tables that could read cards face down. It's alleged that the defendants robbed a victim at gunpoint to acquire a rigged shuffling machine as well. The sports gambling investigation is called Operation Nothing But Net, while the poker investigation is called Operation Royal Flush. So this is what we know as of now. Is at the tip of the iceberg? Only time will tell. But a massive bombshell and not a great day for Adam Silver, to say the least. The Bank of Utah Championship is going on right now. The PGA Tour is in our state at the Black Desert Resort Golf Course in Ivins, Utah. Your leader, and most of these guys are done, Thorborn Olesen is 6 under par, as is Jesper Svensson. David Lipsky is 6 under. Justin Lower, 5 under. So is Paul Peterson, Ryan Gerard, Cameron Champ, and Frankie Cappan Jr., Kevin Streeman. Is also at 5 under. Most of the big names are not close to the top of the leaderboard. Jason Day is at 3 under par. So is Sahith Tagala. These guys are in the clubhouse. So we'll see if some of the big names can start to turn it around a little bit, because this field actually does feature some of the bigger names in golf as opposed to the field that we saw last year. That's your PGA Golf Update, brought to you by our friends at Uinta Golf. The latest on Ping, Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, and more at Uinta Golf and uintagolf.com. We'll do some college football coming up on the other side with Bill Bush. Then we'll send you over to Thursday night football between the Chargers and the Vikings. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. Just want to give a shout out today to Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, Jonte Porter. Just a shout out on a Thursday. I'm no addiction specialist. I'm not a doctor. Chauncey Billups earned over $106 million in his 17 seasons as a player. He's currently the head coach of the Blazers and is paid $4.75 million. as the head coach of Portland. Terry Rozier, $133 million in his 10-year NBA career. His contract this year pays him $26.6 million with the Miami Heat. When's enough, man? Like, that is generational wealth that even if you do nothing with it, your grandkids should be taken care of. And they put all that at stake for what? I don't know. I don't fully understand it. There, a lot of people believe that gambling is an addiction, just like any other addiction, whether it's food, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. And again, I'm not a specialist in this field, but there's something here that is really puzzling about why you would do that to yourself when you're in such a good spot financially.
While you are not wrong, Chauncey Billups has been very well off for a very long time. My one kind of rebuke to that would be with how involved he is, with how deeply intertwined he is with this situation, the apparently kind of like ringleader of and face of a underground poker league. I kind of think this has been going on for a long time, Spence. Like maybe before he was an NBA player, right? He was at least involved in something with these guys that led to a place where Chauncey Billups, a head coach of an NBA team, is in federal custody for a poker game, right? It's pretty crazy to me, and I believe it's a lot bigger of a story than what we're seeing today, and we're going to see that over the next couple of years. I don't know what kind of ramifications you're going to see, but when you get the feds involved, you get like conspiratorial charges involved, you get the mafia involved. We're not only going to see documentaries about this, we're going to see more stories and more developments about this. Gilbert Arenas playing a character on social media, Snitch Gil.
Snitch Gil, my goodness.
He might want to delete that TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe just handle his business behind closed doors. It's absurd. It's crazy. It's also, Spence, something you and I have kind of been alluding to, at least parts of it, for a very long time.
Slippery slope to make all this stuff available and accessible, and news continues to come down. Per the indictment, Damon Jones allegedly revealed information about a prominent player that he had played or coached with missing a Lakers-Bucks game in 2023. LeBron James sat out that game. And of course, LeBron played with Damon Jones, and Damon Jones was a coach in Cleveland as well. So, man, we'll see what the overnight news cycle brings. Feels like this is a seminal moment, and the NBA is now on watch. This is not a good day for Adam Silver. All right, Thursday Night Football comes your way. Coming up on the other side, it is the Vikings and the Chargers. Should be a good one at SoFi. The Chargers are 3.5-point favorite. Aaron Jones Jr. will play in that game. He's missed, I think, the last 5 games for the Vikings. So there you go. Porter, before we say goodnight for Thursday Night Football, what comes our way on a Friday edition of The Drive?
Talking a little bit of hoops, maybe some football too, with our guy Craig Bowler-Jack. Of course, Jazz tip-off with Bowler. Paul Pugmire will give us the Uinta Golf live PGA Tour update from Black Desert Resort in Ivins. Jason Batakiao of the Salt Lake Tribune will stop by the program. I do believe Kyle Bonagura will stop by the program. And for the first time in a long time, we welcome back one Zach Harper, an appropriate day to talk hoops with Zach.
The NBA Daily Assist returns, and pro basketball is back. Of course, we'll continue to cover Utah and BYU football. Big 12 weekend ahead, a lot of big games there. But we will say goodnight, and a special thank you today to Sam Bruckhouse, Tony Parks, and Bill Bush for any of the sound you may miss from the show today. Go to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store for free. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, become a supporter of our podcast page. Please do that. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It is available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars you can. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Thursday Night Football, Vikings-Chargers comes your way after a quick break. And as always, you can hear that right here on ESPN 700.